IB Nation, what's going on? Welcome to the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour, a part of the Irish Breakdown podcast. I'm Ryan Roberts, Director of Recruiting here at irishbreakdown.com. Joined by my guy, Mr. Sean Davis, recruiting analyst here at the site, as well as the co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast. You can find that on the CFB Nation podcast platform, as well as if you go on YouTube, you can search Lucky Lefty podcast. You'll find that very quickly on there. Have an exciting show for you all today. If we're in the midst of spring ball, which means every single weekend now, pretty much, there's a big recruiting weekend, right? We talked about this last Monday, tried to update you on the most recent visitors to Notre Dame. And that's what we're going to do this Monday as well. We're going to talk about some intel that we dropped on the board. It was from the staff. We put it out as the staff because for people that don't know, just briefly, don't want to hit on this too much because this is not what we're here for. I had a little bit of a tough week. So this effort to put together a lot of intel on the recruiting side was a full staff effort, as it usually is, as it always is. But I really wanted to kind of just shout out both Sean and Brian Driscoll, especially for getting a lot of the work in this weekend, man, and helping me out and, kind of picking up the slack that I unfortunately left just kind of with everything that was going on. So we have a lot of great intel, though. It is the recruiting visitor intel for April 1st. If you are on the message board, that has a plethora from the IB staff of information about 2024 kids that were on site at Notre Dame this past weekend, as well as 2025. So you should go sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com because we're basically going to review all the stuff we found out this weekend. But if you were signed up to the message board, you would have found this out yesterday. So want to go make sure you go sign up there. Second segment of the podcast, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of some of the recent offers Notre Dame made over this past week. It was only 3 players that were added to the board, 1 2024 player, and then 2 2025s. So we're going to hit on them and do what we do best around here, watch some film and just kind of break it down and see what we're working with football players. And then we'll hit a mailbag at the end, right? So mailbag questions in the chat, just put a MB in front. We already had, I think, 8 questions before the podcast even started because you know how all you do here at Irish Breakdown, man, and in the chat room. So keep throwing in those MB questions. We'll hit on that in the third segment of the show. Sean, though, man, it's good to see you, first and foremost. We have a lot to talk about, sir. A whole lot to talk about. A lot of players on campus, a lot of big visits, a lot of revelations is how I would kind of say it, Sean. Like there's some players we thought Notre Dame was very high on. After the weekend, we are convinced that they are very high on them, which is some things we're hearing. And there's other players that we know that we've liked a ton, but maybe Notre Dame isn't quite as high on. So we'll kind of dig into a lot of that this past weekend, man. But it's good to see you, brother. It's very good to see you.
Good to see you, bro. Back at it. Great weekend. Just got to watch the recruiting weekend up close and personal. And the 2 big kids that were on campus, 25 and 24, Caleb Beasley, Deuce Knight. By the way, hey, I mistook Deuce Knight for a basketball player.
He's tall, man. He's really
real
tall.
You can ask B. Drisk. I'm like, man, who? I'm like, no, he is legit. Like, I'm sure when they measured him, they were like, oh, okay.
He's one of those 6'4" kids, Sean, that is legit 6'4". Like he's not 6'2.5", saying he's 6'4". Like he's 6'4".
Man.
You know how I know? Because not only was he towering over guys like Marcus Freeman, he was standing next to Gino Guidugli, the quarterback coach, and Gino is legit like 6'4.5", 6'5", and he looked just as tall as him, right? So you're exactly. Yeah, he's tall, man. He's tall.
I'm like, yo, is this kid gonna get any taller? He's still a sophomore. Like, it's crazy. It's so funny because I'll be near him at the end of the month. I'll be taking a trip with my dad back home to Macomb, Mississippi to take care of some family business. And I looked it up. It's like an hour and a half from Loosedale. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, man.
He's closer to New Orleans than he is. He's probably more of a New Orleans kid. That's the thing about the tip of Mississippi.
Yep.
People that live at the southern tip of Mississippi are more like New Orleans, Louisiana kids than they are Mississippi kids.
Yep.
Which that kind of gives me a little bit tidbit of like his makeup.
Yeah. No, it's true. Sean, I think this is the best way to do it, man. There was mostly 2024 kids on campus, but you already started this talk about Deuce Knight, man. So let's bang out the 2025 kid that was on campus. Of course, we're talking about quarterback out of Loosedale, Mississippi, 6'4", 185 pounds, 2025 recruit. So he's just a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
But man, and we played his film on the podcast, I think last week or the week before, Sean. Kid's very good. He is a lefty. I know someone said something about that in the chat. Yes, he is a left-handed thrower. Very talented, Sean. I watched him throw the ball like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, oh, that's legit. That's legit. And then he ran the football, and I'm like, oh, that's a dual threat kid, man. That's a really interesting player. What we had on the intel piece, I have had the chance to message back and forth with Deuce. And I also have I have a phone call with him tonight, actually. So you guys should have a nice update either tonight on the message board and tomorrow on irishbreakdown.com as far as that conversation. Because I see that there's a couple people talking about in the chat, Sean, as far as like interviews he's done after the visit and timelines. And it seems like there's a little bit of, kind of inconsistent information a little bit. Like not bad, like, oh, these guys are making things up. Just like as far as timelines and stuff, like maybe a couple different timelines that are out there.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to update you all as far as what Deuce's legit timeline is, at least what he tells me. But I would say this, Sean. I coined it like this, right? Coming into this visit, Deuce Knight was very intrigued by Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame has done a great job. They have made him feel like an absolute priority in the 2025 class from the jump, right? And he knows about what Notre Dame can bring, from the, everything alumni base and, after football and that perspective, right? And his brother is actually Ty Freifogel, who played at Indiana. So it's not like he's foreign to Northern in general, being from Mississippi. But he didn't know too much about Notre Dame. He told me that in just kind of a visit preview that I did with him. That, like, he knows Notre Dame, but he doesn't actually know Notre Dame, right? Like, he doesn't know enough about them. So getting up was a big opportunity for him to really do his digging from both sides. It looks like, one, I'll say this from Deuce Knight's side of things, right? I think he messed with the coaches fantastically. Talked a lot about Marcus Freeman. Talked a lot about Gino Guidugli. I think that really stood with him, man. He's a relationship kid. He's definitely a relationship kid. On the other side, sources that we have close to Notre Dame, they feel like they really moved the needle with Deuce Knight. And, I mean, there's some people that think that they might even be the leader for Deuce Knight right now, leaving that visit. So timeline aside for a second, Sean, the quarterback class in 2025 is silly talented, man. Like, we're going to talk about Bryce Underwood. We're going to talk about George McIntyre. Cutter Boley was just on campus last week. Deuce Knight. We believe that Deuce is right near the top of that list, though, as far as Notre Dame, where they visualize these quarterbacks. And, man, they really took a great step forward with Deuce Knight this weekend, man. Really, really moved the needle, I think, with the Mississippi quarterback.
I think what you saw from this young man was buy-in. Look, we're sitting there and we're watching practice. And this is why it looked awkward, because we usually watch practice and we're used to the recruits being on either sideline with their parents, right? And so I kept watching the scrimmage. I'm like, who is this kid? Who is this basketball player standing next to Gino? Like, he's just in the middle of the field, like right behind the quarterbacks, the entire practice. I'm like, who is that? And, Brian's like, that's Deuce Knight. I'm like, oh, word? I'm like, so I didn't really take it, because there's 2 ways you can take that. I didn't even take it as Notre Dame was giving him the VIP treatment. I'm like, yo, for a young man to want to be away from everybody else and be like behind the quarterbacks watching, like hearing Gino Guidugli coach and hearing the calls and watching the plays, I'm like, yo, he's different. He's different. He has a different level of interest in, what's going on. So when you talk about that, from just watching the interaction, you darn right him and Gino Guidugli got along. Like, that was obvious. It was very obvious. And I'll just say this, because I kind of mentioned it earlier today. I'm going to be honest, man. I think Marcus Freeman has become very comfortable in his skin in his second year. And I think he stepped into whatever that place is without the outside covering or shell of trying to be what everybody thought he should have been or needs to be in the first year.
Right.
And he's just a flat out star. I'm telling you, just to watch these kids like around him, like he's a star. Like their level of giddiness to like meet him and take photos, it's like, yo, we say it all the time. If he wins, college football is in trouble. If he wins, because he is the primary reason Caleb Beasley was on campus.
Yes.
So, and that's saying something considering Mike Mickens has done an incredible job recruiting the cornerback position. But it's like, man, he is for kids like Justin Scott, Caleb Beasley, Deuce Knight. They want to play for they come away with a feeling of, man, I want to play for this dude. Yes. Or I can see myself playing for this dude and playing for these coaches. And that's a fantastic thing to watch kind of unfold right before our eyes at Notre Dame. It really is. But that was the one thing that stood out to me. And I didn't even look at it as Notre Dame giving him VIP treatment. I'm like, wait a minute. Did he ask to come out to the middle of the field? Because most recruits are cool with just watching from the sideline.
Yep.
But that kid was like, no, I want to be in the middle of the action. And he was taller than every quarterback. That was another thing. I'm like, he's bigger than all the quarterbacks in red jerseys. Like, this is.
If Notre Dame gets Deuce Knight, Sean, after getting CJ Carr at 6'2.5", 6'3", and the Deuce Knight at 6'4", they can't make the 6-foot jokes anymore, man. The 6-foot jokes are over.
That's over. That's over.
Sean, like, think about this, man. A couple years from now, flash forward in the future, if Notre Dame gets a commitment from Deuce Knight, I mean, even like he's not the only tall quarterback on the 2025 board, though, right? Like George McIntyre, 6'5", Cutter Boley, 6'5". There's a lot of taller guys on the quarterback board, but just imagine a future if they get a commitment from Deuce Knight where you have Deuce Knight, CJ Carr, Kenny Minchey's going to be your shortest quarterback at just a hair under 6'2". Like, what a change that has taken place over the last couple of years, man, as far as the prototype.
Angeli's about what, 6'2"?
Yeah, he's over 6'2". He's almost 6'3". Yeah. So, I mean, Kenny Minchey's going to be your shortest quarterback potentially in a few years.
I'm glad they changed the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And, this is a discussion. I don't know if it's Brian or myself, but just like, would he have been a top target, if certain coaches were still around? Because we feel like, I don't know, you went over his film. He's not as polished as a CJ or a Kenny Minchey, right? The competition he probably faces is probably not at the same level that CJ and Kenny faced.
Right.
But you talk about just raw talent.
Yes. Sean, here's a take. Ready? Here's a take. And again, 2025 board for Notre Dame is silly talented quarterback. I mean, I already mentioned Cutter Boley. Already mentioned George McIntyre. Bryce Underwood's on there, who's the number one quarterback in the class. I think he has a good argument to being the top player in the 2025 class right now. Antoine Hill is a really toolsy quarterback that has been offered by Notre Dame as well. But I would say this, Sean, if you ask me who has the most raw potential and upside, I think most would probably say Bryce Underwood. But I would actually say that's probably Deuce Knight, right? And that right now, Bryce Underwood is the best quarterback on that board. I don't think it's close. I'm not going to say it's not particularly close, but like he is substantially the top quarterback.
I'll be interested in seeing him next to others once their group goes through the Elite 11 thing. Then we'll start to see, because people thought, I'll be honest, people thought the competition was close in the 23 class. And then we actually saw Dante throw.
Yes.
And it was like, okay.
Sean, I saw Dante throw down in San Antonio, man. I'm like, this isn't close, guys. Like, he's the best quarterback in this class. It's not actually that close. It's not that close.
It's not even close.
Like Nico's really talented, Malachi's really talented. Like, they're all talented, man. Yeah. But Dante was the best quarterback in that class, in my opinion. I think it was pretty substantial. This quarterback class, I think Bryce right now is that guy. But if you told me 3 years from now that Deuce Knight is I guess 5 years from now, because we're talking about sophomores in high school, right? But if
Mhm.
you told me 5 years from now that Deuce Knight is the best quarterback out of this group, I'd be like, all right, I could see that, right? It's just all about development with that type of kid because he is super toolsy, man. Can run, can throw, just really smart kid as well. High academic kid as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big layer. So Deuce Knight, big move with Notre Dame. I also think he's probably my favorite. I think he's my favorite quarterback on the board right now, Sean, as far as like just guys that I really
I would agree.
gravitated towards. Again,
Yep.
not saying he's the best. Bryce
Yep.
Underwood's the best right now, but like I just gravitate towards him for some reason,
Mhm.
man. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
I think maybe it's because I've gotten to know him a little bit too, and
Yep.
really good kid, man. Like really good kid. So he just kind of hits all those vantage points, which is always nice.
I can tell you right now, Malik lost his mind.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Oh, he's a lefty. Of course he
Malik
did.
lost his mind
Yeah.
just over the hype. He was like, "We're recruiting somebody like this." He was like, "Okay." He's like, "Now we want to go somewhere, right?" And he was
Yep.
like, "Yo," he was like, he said, "I wouldn't even mess with him too much. Just his footwork and just speed up his process and delivery a little bit." He said, "That's it."
Yep.
Because other than that, I'm just gonna let his natural ability just play out. Like I'm not about to tinker with him a whole bunch. Just let him play and let him learn. And he was like, "Yo, he's gonna be a big time talent." So I'm right there with you, Ryan. He's at the top of the quarterback list for me. And I'm Bryce J. Underwood. We've been talking about him for like the last year and a half. So
Stud, man.
he
Stud.
is who he is. Yeah.
He really is, man. He's a really dynamic player, but Deuce Knight is a dynamic talent as well. So keep your eyes forward to that update I should have on Deuce tonight for the message board, tomorrow on irishbreakdown.com. So you make sure to subscribe to the boards at irishbreakdown.com. Make sure that you get some intel there. Sean, let's move into some of the 2025 kids, though, man, because there was a lot of them that we need to hit on here. And I'm really excited about some of the things I heard this weekend, Sean. Like there was a lot of really good news, and there's a couple things that you hear that you're just like, that's not ideal, and that's not from a Notre Dame didn't do a good job on the visit. I didn't talk to a single kid, and as a staff, we didn't talk to a single kid that didn't have a great visit, right? But just from just a couple things we'll dig into here. First note that I want to make before we dive into Caleb Beasley, who Sean just hit on a little bit, who is out of Lipscomb Academy in the state of Tennessee, committed to the University of Tennessee. David Washington, who is a wide receiver out of Arborview High School in Las Vegas, Nevada, did not make the trip to Notre Dame. From the sound of it, it's just kind of, Notre Dame has guys a little higher on the board and just, they're just kind of going a different direction with that one. And Isaiah Mosey, who's a 2025 wide receiver out of Missouri, was also not able to make the trip. That one, I believe, was weather-related. So David chose, it was obviously a mutual understanding for David Washington not to come, but Isaiah Mosey was more weather-related because we know that South Bend was a little bit dicey from the weather perspective this weekend, man.
It was bananas.
Sean, Saturday nights, or was it Friday night? Friday nights. Yeah, wait. Was Saturday night the
tornado, the storm came through the Midwest on Friday.
Yes.
I actually had a tornado touchdown like a mile away from my house Friday night.
Wild, man.
And it was like a hailstorm. It was bananas. Had water in my basement. And I drove through a storm going to practice. So, yeah, Friday into Saturday in the Northwest Indiana and Chicago area was
Saturday night then, man. Saturday night, there was a tornado that touched down pretty close to me. We were also in a tornado warning, and hail was coming down, brother.
Yes.
It was a little scary. It was like 7:30 at night. I was like, it was dark outside. It was ominous. It was ugly, man. It was really ugly here in Jersey Saturday night. But yes, it was crazy weather over the weekend. So I don't blame anybody, Isaiah Mosey for not making the trip, man. It was a little bit dicey, obviously, making the trip from Missouri. So just, unfortunate one that he wasn't able to make it. But a few players that were able to make it, Sean. We'll start with Caleb Beasley, again, out of Lipscomb Academy in Tennessee. This timeline has been fascinating, Sean. Going back to the summer when they were all at the Irish Invasion. It was CJ Carr, Cam Williams, Jack Larson, and Caleb Beasley was the fourth guy that we talked about a lot after that event, man, because those guys seemed to really hit it off that event, right? And then soon after, CJ comes off the board, Cam comes off the board, Jack comes off the board. You're just like, yeah, man, that's the That's that nucleus that was created a little bit at the Irish
Yeah.
invasion. And you felt really good about where Caleb was with Notre Dame as well. But I think that Tennessee really rode the wave of momentum throughout the year. You know, they won 10 games. Josh Heupel seems to have it going in the right direction. Really good, really good, direction that I think the Tennessee program is going in. So they landed a commitment from Caleb Beasley. We know a couple months ago, Sean, though, there was a basketball game that Marcus Freeman went to to see Caleb Beasley play. Caleb Beasley was excited. That would be an understatement to say that he was really excited for that. And getting him to come on campus, man, someone just said it, in that type of weather, in that type of storm, being able to get him to come up from the state of Tennessee to Notre Dame on an unofficial visit, it's kind of big time, man. It's kind of big time. So no one can sit here and say that there's no interest from Caleb Beasley. Now, this one after the visit, we were told that they really struck a note heavy with the parents and the family. They have made the family a priority. They have made Caleb Beasley a priority. And everyone asked this question, Sean, of who are the guys in this class that are going to be takes at any point, no matter what, no matter if they fill up or don't. Caleb Beasley's always going to be that guy, man. They could have 3 corners committed in the class. Yeah. They're going to take Caleb Beasley. Yeah. They're going to take him, right? So this one is not one where we're going to say he's going to flip to Notre Dame in the next week or two, right? Like, that's not what we're saying here. But what I am telling you is that Caleb definitely has an affinity for Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is not stopping, guys. Not stopping. They are being relentless with this recruitment. They have made Caleb Beasley a priority to try to get into this class, and they're relentless, Sean. I feel like Notre Dame made some really positive impact this weekend with Caleb Beasley.
And that's great to hear, right? Because you put the pressure on Tennessee to follow things up. Because, you know, the season they had was one of the big reasons that led to Beasley, along with fellow Tennessee prep stars, to commit to that program. Tennessee has to back that up, right? Notre Dame is building. The fact that Notre Dame went 9-4 and is still in the hunt and making an impression on the parents and the love that this young man has, obviously, for Marcus Freeman. Look, Notre Dame has the ability with this 23 season to turn the heat up on Tennessee. And I really do expect at some point in the fall that Caleb Beasley will have a very difficult decision to make.
I'll say this, Sean. If they get Caleb Beasley to take an official to Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is going to pull it off. I really do. If they get him to take an official before or during the season, I think Notre Dame has a legitimate chance to flip Caleb. I really do, man, because I think that he really loves Notre Dame, man.
Yeah.
I do. I really do. And like Jason Smith just said, Sean, it's a long way from sending that fax in, right, man? Notre Dame has time to get this one in their wheelhouse. They do, man. I think they have a chance. They think they have a chance. It's about continuing to send that message consistently and backing it up on the field, to your point.
And let me tell you something. If you want to talk about like scrimmages, I talked about Justin Scott's visit, right? And how it was physical, the practice, and how he pointed out the intensity and the skirmishes and the fights between the defensive line and the offensive line. And there's an old video that plays on NFL Network at times with Mike Singletary. I think he's playing the Packers, and he's telling the offensive lineman, "Hey, I like this type of party, baby." And it's like that. If you could like form a practice for Justin Scott to be on the sideline, that would have been the perfect practice for him to watch. Like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I like as a defensive lineman from Chicago. And it's the same thing. If you could not have formed a better practice than what Benjamin Morrison did on Saturday. With Caleb Beasley right there, Benjamin Morrison put on a show. It didn't matter what wide receiver he was defending. He locked them all down in practice. Everybody. No one got anything. And I'm like, I don't know if Notre Dame is like forming these practices based upon the people they have on the sideline with these recruits, but these practices are going the exact way they need to go to really impress some of these young men. I'm telling you, if Caleb Beasley, watched Benjamin Morrison on Saturday, because you know he knows who he is. Sure. He knows. And he watched him
Everyone
lock down.
does. All the corners that have been on campus know who Benjamin
Dude,
Morrison.
let me
They
tell
all
you
know.
something, man. The way he wasn't play, he didn't play any off coverage, bro. None. It was almost like he took it personal. No off coverage.
Well, he's probably mad at the Notre Dame media department, Sean. Every catch you see right now that they're
Yes.
highlighting is against Benjamin
Yes.
Morrison. It's just
Yes.
like the one play of practice that they get Benjamin Morrison. We're going to highlight that.
Where he knew, like, oh, the media's going to be here for the full practice. Okay. Watch this. And he put on a show. I was just like, yo, this kid is amazing. I guess we don't have to worry about a sophomore slump.
Let's hope, man. Let's hope. Because Sean, these types of players, though, they're the ones that create a pipeline. You know, they're the ones that you look at Benjamin Morrison going from freshman All-American to All-American. The next cornerback after that in 2024, 25 is like, I want to be that guy.
Yes.
You know, I want to be that. And that matters. It really does. You know, we can pretend like it doesn't, but that 100% matters. So, that's where we are with Caleb Beasley, though, Sean. Very good update there. Obviously, both sides, I think, had a tremendous visit and feel pretty good about where Notre Dame is with Caleb. But it's one, again, where Notre Dame has set the precedent that this is a priority target for them in 2024. They got to keep plugging along. Keep plugging along. Keep plugging along, and let's see what happens when the pen is put to the paper. You know, this time, not this time next year, but next January, I should say.
This is fun. Because this is normally happening to Notre Dame, right? They jump out early on a kid, either get him to commit, and then here come the Sharks. Here comes Georgia. Here comes Ohio State. Here comes Alabama, right?
Yep.
This time, Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame are like, okay, Josh Heupel, we're coming. You're coming. And that's like pressure now with a new quarterback.
Yes.
And some big losses on defense. Josh Heupel, you have to follow up that season. You can't go 9-4.
You can't go 9-4. You're absolutely right. You can't.
No.
Because it's the SEC. So we know that every single week every single year, I should say, you know, you're talking about competing against SEC schools if you're Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
So having that ability to really showcase that there is some type of sustainability is big time in the SEC, because one year could be Tennessee, the next we're back to like it's Georgia, Alabama, and everybody else. Like we could be back to there. I mean, there's a couple of years ago, Sean, where you're like Kentucky might be that next team. You know, like they might be that next team, and they kind of took a step back this past year as well. So I mean, it's kind of the revolving door. So Tennessee has the ability to show it's sustainable, then they're going to continue to get those types of recruits. There's no doubt about it. But the minute that you show that maybe it was a little bit of a fluke, just slightly, then things can kind of go haywire a little bit. Yep. But Caleb Beasley, man, good visit from them. Want to go to now, Sean, we're going to go to state of Connecticut with this next update. Cheshire Academy has two defensive linemen, Sean. Jacob and Jared Smith. Jared is more of the strong side defensive end, potentially 3-tech down the line, depending on how his body develops. Jacob Smith is the true Viper, 6'4", 225, 230 pounds. Last time I checked in with him a couple months ago, he was 227, so he might be over 230 at this point. They were last year, actually the last 2 years, they have been at the Loomis Chaffee School up there. And now they're in a position now, Sean, where they have actually transferred to Cheshire Academy for their senior campaigns. These are two twins that we have felt good about with Notre Dame for some time. I mean, for several months. The question has always been for them, though, for me, Sean, was when are the Smith twins going to make their decision? You know, I've talked to both of them a lot over the last few months, you know, and it's always the same. It's like, you know, we'd like to sometime in the spring, sometime in the summer, maybe before the season, but like, it's like, there's no definity to that timeline. You know, you never hear the definity in that sense. Well, I got a much more defined outlook this weekend, Sean. Talked to Jared Smith. He was the one that kind of dropped this information to me. We should expect that the Smith twins are going to drop a top 5 school list sometime in the near future. I would expect over the next week or two. And then they made it sound like shortly after that might be commitment time, right? Like it might be that final push to make it a commitment. So this one was a end of summer decision, it seemed like at some points, but this might be a spring decision that happens with the Smith twins. I think, once again, Notre Dame did a tremendous job with the Smith twins. Jacob talked a whole lot about the impact that each coach has had on him. He said from Al Golden to the training staff and everyone in between, Coach Freeman and Al Washington and everybody that he's talked to and had ability to have a conversation with, that they have made them feel like a priority. They have made them feel very comfortable. Obviously, they are two players, Sean, that I think really value relationships. That's one thing that both of them have been super consistent on. We do believe that this is a package deal. This is whoever school ends up getting Jacob Smith is also going to get Jared Smith and vice versa. Like, this is a package deal. A lot of good programs are on these kids. I know there's a very mixed opinions on the Smith twins. We could talk about that in the mailbag if people want to. Like, we could talk about thoughts on it. All I know is that Alabama is pushing for them. Georgia's pushing for them. Like, go look at that Smith twins offer list, man. Like, it's not a bunch of nobodies, right? Yeah. Like, it's a pretty dang impressive offer list. So feel very good, though, about Notre Dame being in that top 5 when the Smith twins do drop their top 5 lists, though, Sean. And ultimately, I think that they're going to be hard to beat for the Smiths, Notre Dame being.
You kind of felt that way early on. I think Al Washington, this probably was one of his best or earliest connections in recruiting, the Smith twins. And they did a really good job. They came in for that day in January where they did the whole, get dressed up as Secret Service and the kids come in. And, I remember the story behind that, how that almost went left with some of the recruits. But, they've done a great job with every visit. Just really hitting a home run. Because I remember that visit, they had commits on campus as well, but they allowed the 25, 24 kids that were uncommitted to experience everything together.
Yep.
Without the pressure of the committed kids. And then the next visit, like you hear about this weekend. And this weekend was really about having conversations, kind of similar to what we heard about Justin Scott, right? When you get to a certain point with certain recruits, you've built the relationship, the relationship that exists. Now it's okay. What's going on? Like, let us know what the truth is. Let us know where we stand and, your decision-making process and all of that. So I think the Smiths, Justin Scott, they're in a similar timeline to me as far as
late spring-ish.
Late spring or early summer.
Yeah.
As far as decisions, Caleb Beasley goes until National Signing Day. Like, in my opinion, that's a battle to the end.
Even if he flips sometime before or during the season, Sean, it's still one of those ones where people are not going to stop recruiting Caleb Beasley, to your point. So not going to stop.
No. So, but I'm glad that they're a package deal. And I'm very interested in how people view them.
Yeah. There's a lot of negative on the board, at least, about the Smith twins. But, someone just asked about them, though. So we'll talk about them in the mailbag at that point. We will talk about them. So Notre Dame feels good about where they are with them. I think that the Smith twins also reciprocate that heavy interest in Notre Dame. I think ultimately when they do make that decision, because again, there's some top schools coming after them. I know Michigan's done a really nice job with the Smith twins as well. I think Notre Dame is going to be very hard to beat. It's kind of where we are. So that's kind of the most recent update there. Sean, I want to go now to Central Catholic out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Linebacker Cole Sullivan, Sean, who seems like he is getting closer and closer to potentially making a decision, Sean. Why do I say that? Because he had the whole family on this trip, Sean. He had the parents, he had the grandparents. Everybody came to town. And that's kind of been the trend on recent visits, is I think that Cole is really getting into that, I want to check out these certain schools and really find that right fit. We've talked about, obviously we're talking about Notre Dame here, but Michigan's doing a really good job with him. Penn State is also doing a really good job with him. I'd say that is probably the top 3 schools right now for Cole Sullivan. I feel like Notre Dame made a really nice move with Cole Sullivan this week, Sean. But this is one where You have to be relentless to the end if you really want Cole to commit to Notre Dame when he ultimately does make that decision. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion in Notre Dame. I think people should get that out of their heads that this is just like low-hanging fruit, and this is the only school that is going to take Cole Sullivan. Like Michigan will take him today. Penn State will take him today. They're going to be in heavy competition for Cole Sullivan. But I think by all accounts that we have on both sides, this went very well, and I think they moved the needle with Cole. It's just about beating Michigan and Penn State down the stretch for when he does make that commitment.
And with you saying that, his film, the more I watched, the more I said, okay, I think I like this kid more than I liked them when I heard about the offer.
Yeah.
And to see him bring his family, right? There are a lot of kids because for the first time I usually go upstairs immediately. For the first time, I spent a lot of time down on the field.
Yeah.
And there were just a lot of families there that had purpose, right? So I saw a couple of tight ends that were there, like literally come over to Jared Parker and watch the tight end drills with their parents. Yep. Like intently, like watching how this group is being coached. And I saw other parents do the same thing, go across the field to get closer to certain positional groups. So that was intent and purpose. And when you talk about Cole Sullivan, that's what you kind of felt. And the intel you got is spot on because they were locked in. They were locked into that linebacker group. And I'll be honest, man, people can say what they want to say. I've said it. I said it at the practice. The two of the three most athletic linebackers at Notre Dame are freshmen.
Yeah. Dude, I heard I obviously I wasn't there, Sean, but I heard Drake Bowen was playing outside of his mind on Saturday, man. Just playing insane.
Well, I kind of gave you the intel like a week earlier, but I can't officially.
Yes. When we're old and gray, Sean, and retired, then we could give people that story. But
we'll still laugh about that because we laughed about it. We laughed about it Saturday upstairs.
That's too funny, man. That's so funny. But yeah,
it's the linebacker room. I think is take by leaps and bounds. Now,
yep.
I wonder. My question is, the coaching is definitely being impacted. We talked about this. Like Max Bullock is the new voice you hear above everybody.
Yes. Heard his name a lot when I talked to Kingston last week, Sean. Yeah. Kingston Viamu, Asa out of St. John Bosco, a lot. And I know you're talking about on the field, but I'm talking about off the field too. You're starting to hear his name.
Now that is important because that's where I was headed, Double R. That's where I was headed. I don't know if it's going to be Al Golden, particularly heading up things, or if Max Bullock is going to jump into the same spot and responsibilities that James Laurinaitis had for the group of linebackers in 24. But I love hearing his name being mentioned, right? Because you talk about somebody that is coaching the hell out of Jaden Osbury and Drake Bowen.
Yeah, man.
Man, they are getting it. Rep after rep, play after play. I don't care if they're going through a drill that really most of us will watch and say, oh, okay. They are getting ear holes with information like balance, get down. Dude, he's just, man, hammering. Because, and when you hear that, coaches used to tell me, if I shut up, then you should feel bad or have a problem.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I'm saying something to you, that's because I think you have potential to be better or to be good. So
you don't waste your time on people that you don't have potential with.
Absolutely.
You don't think they have potential. You don't waste your time with those types. Absolutely.
But Cole Sullivan, for me, like I said, once we went through his film right here, Recruiting Hour, and I was like, you know what? Okay. I like the competition he plays against and the instincts he has. So, I think we're getting better, more athletic and more instinctive linebackers in the
Yeah.
linebacker room, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I definitely understand, the skepticism on linebacker recruiting in 2024. I totally get that. And again, we could talk about that. But all I know, Sean, is the guys that Notre Dame's trending well with, the one thing you can't tell me is that Notre Dame's not going to get longer or more athletic and continue to get longer and more athletic. Like, you might not, some people I'm sure that watch the show, Sean, that aren't big fans of Cole Sullivan, which is fine. You have your opinion, right? But I mean, my guy is a legit 6'3 plus, and he's athletic, right? So it's not like they're just bringing in, people just say like, oh, they're just bringing in these 6', 6'1" linebackers who lack length. And no, that's not what's happening. You might not like the targets potentially, but you can't tell me that they're not bringing in length and athleticism. You can't tell me that.
Can't say that.
That's not what's happening, right? So Cole Sullivan, I think it's going to be a Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State battle until the end. We shall see if Notre Dame is able to move the needle there. Sean, want to go to 2 offensive linemen. Actually, no, we'll save that one because that's probably going to be a pretty long conversation during this podcast. Probably going to be pretty long. Let's go to Darian Mayo, Sean, who is a defensive end out of Good Counsel High School in Olney, Maryland. First trip ever to Notre Dame. 6'6", 240 pounds. This is also another 2024 recruit, by the way. The only 2025 kids that we've hit on is Deuce Knight, and I'll have like a slight note on Ryan Gee at the end, who's a tight end out of the state of Georgia. Darian Mayo is a defensive end, long, athletic, explosive, very raw football player, though. He's one that hasn't been playing football for very long. He was an AAU basketball player. Basketball was kind of his focus early on in his high school career. But now, obviously, he's getting looked at by a lot of schools, man, like Clemson, Auburn, Florida. A lot of SEC schools are after him, including Notre Dame, right? So, Sean, we kind of the note that we had on Darian Mayo was we thought that Darian Mayo, they really moved the needle for him a little bit this weekend. He was very receptive to the visits. I think they definitely caught his eye. There's no doubt. This is just one where this is going to be a long haul type of conversation, Sean. Like, this is one where you're going to have to keep recruiting him hard and have to try to get him back on campus again. Like, that's going to be a big thing for it. I just don't know if the windows are going to match up with this one for me. I don't know if he is going to be in commit mode and with Notre Dame in a good position when Notre Dame still has room for him. That's just kind of where we are, right? Like, I think that you feel good about where they are with the Smith twins. You feel good about Bryce Young, obviously. You feel good about Justin Scott, although Justin Scott's another one of those kids where Justin Scott's always going to be room for Justin Scott in this class. Like, there's never not going to be room for Justin Scott.
Right.
I think that they did a good job with Darian Mayo, and I would expect them to keep recruiting Darian Mayo. I just don't know how realistic that one is. Like, that's kind of where it is. But it was still a really good visit. And I think that they made an impact with him. I just don't know if it's going to be a fit long term, and not a fit for negative reasons at all. Just a fit as in the board just might be full by the time he's in decision mode. Like, that's kind of where we are with it.
Yeah, it's tough, right? If things line up and the dominoes fall the way we think they're going to fall, it will be a battle of, is there a spot left? Pretty much. Not a battle, really, but I guess it could be a battle with the staff. Then, like, man, do we still want him? Do we give a spot away in this position or that position?
There's going to be a little bit of pressure, Sean. I mean, like, call it what it is. Like, the staff's going to be like, hey, man, like, we can't wait forever, right? Like, we can't wait forever. It's kind of that type of situation.
So you snooze, you lose, right? Even in recruiting,
I guess so. I just hope Notre Dame isn't the loser in that situation by picking the wrong guy. But that's another conversation for another day, Yeah. And they also have, and I think Keith Wiegand just put in the chat, Sean, Malachi Williams is also another talented Viper type that's going to be on campus coming up soon. So Darian Mayo, Malachi Williams, Jacob Smith, like, there's a lot of competition, man. A lot of competition.
Hey, you know how I feel about Malachi.
Kid's a freak, man. Philadelphia guy. He's a freak. There's no doubt. Yep. He's a really good football player. So they're going to get him on in April as well. April's a big month. April, and then we're going to start seeing a lot of official visits in June from some guys, and that's going to be a really busy couple of months for the site, obviously. So make sure to stay tuned. But, again, they did a good job with Darian Mayo. Just I don't know if it's going to match long term, but we shall see, obviously. We shall
Yeah.
see. Next, so let's start the offensive lineman conversation, Sean. Actually, no, we're not going to do that yet. We're going to save that for last. I keep changing my mind on this one, Sean. Just want to quickly hit on Aaron Scott, who's the cornerback out of Springfield, Ohio. Basically, what it was, Sean, great visit. Notre Dame did well. I just don't think that they did. I don't think that it quite was enough to overtake Ohio State and Michigan, right? Like those are the two schools that are standing out. Ohio State, I think, has a comfortable lead there, but Michigan's in that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Just don't think Notre Dame had enough. I don't think they were able to make up enough ground with Aaron Scott. I think they really put themselves in a great position with Caleb Beasley to potentially make that flip at some point. I just don't think they quite did enough with Aaron Scott. I think they had a great trip. Yeah. I think Aaron Scott likes Notre Dame. It's just he's an Ohio kid, right? Ohio State he has an affinity to Ohio State. Yep. And then also Michigan's done a good job with him. So it's just kind of where we are, man. I just don't think they made up enough ground with Aaron Scott. You know, no fault to them. They put their best foot forward. Yeah. It was always just going to be a tough get to get Aaron Scott out of Ohio. It's always going to be that way.
It's a lot of good defensive backs in Ohio at 24, isn't it?
There is, man.
So, I mean, it's to the point where, you know what? You go after all of them. If you end up with only 2 or 3, then you're probably going to end up with 2 or 3 really good players.
Yeah. We have an Ohio State fan that says, no chance Scott is a Buckeye. Okay. All right. That's not kind of what we're hearing, but okay, cool. We keep moving on there. All right, Sean.
I just saw that. No chance of what?
You're talking about Justin Scott? I'm talking about Aaron Scott. If he's talking about Justin Scott.
Okay, that's why I was looking like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I thought he was talking about. I was talking about Aaron Scott. I don't know if he was talking about Justin Scott in the chat. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Sean, let's get to the offensive lineman talk, man. Let's get into it. 2 guys that we're going to talk about. Kevin Haywood's out of Pope John II. Mm-hmm. He is a Pennsylvania guy. Another Pennsylvania guy is Wyoming offensive lineman Caleb Brewer out of Reading, PA, who we have talked about a ton on this channel. Everybody knows that I am a big fan of Caleb Brewer. I know Sean is as well. Aaron Scott's not going to Ohio State. Is that what we're saying? All right, I'm sorry. The chat keeps getting me distracted, man. So Caleb Brewer, offensive lineman out of Wyoming. Pope John Paul II, offensive lineman Kevin Haywood. This is basically where we are with this one, Sean. I'll start with Haywood.
Okay.
Haywood is in a situation where we talked about this. His visit schedule over the next 4 weeks is just ridiculous, man. He's going anywhere. Well, not anywhere. He's going everywhere. They have schools that are kind of recruiting him, man. He's going down to Miami at some points. He's been doing the Midwest swing. I think he's going down to Tennessee, if I remember correctly. He's going everywhere. He's absolutely going everywhere. A lot of suitors for the 6'7", 295 pounds. Oh, gotcha. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. This chat is messing me up, man. Stop saying stuff in the chat about Aaron Scott. You're messing me up, guys. You're messing me up. I'm just kidding, obviously. So, Haywood, Sean, I think that Haywood really loved the visit. I think that Notre Dame made legit progress there. The question is, as far as he wasn't really recruited much by Joe Rudolph when he was at Virginia Tech. So that relationship is very new.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that this is one that's going to happen anytime quick. And I'm not necessarily predicting Notre Dame to get Kevin Haywood. I just think that they'll be in the mix, obviously, when it's all said and done. I think they'll be in the conversation at least for a bit. I don't know if he ultimately lands with him, but I think that we're in a situation here, in my opinion, that you make a good progress, but there's a lot of work to do from that personal connection perspective between Joe Rudolph and Kevin Haywood. That's kind of where we are, but good progress there. The other ones, sorry, go ahead.
No, we expected some of that, right?
Yeah.
With the transition, so still got an opportunity.
Yep. And then the other guy, Caleb Brewer, who I've felt good about Notre Dame's chances for a long time. I've always been, in my opinion, that it's a Notre Dame Penn State conversation, because his teammate just went to Penn State this last year, Javen Williams. He's, that part of the Pennsylvania is very Penn State pro in that little section. And I'm in this situation here, Sean, where by all accounts, and I'll have a little bit more on Caleb probably in the near future. Caleb had a really good visit there. I think it met his expectations as far as the school. But this is the situation we're in, Sean. This is probably going to run most of our conversation here, is that Notre Dame views Caleb Brewer as an interior offensive lineman. That's what they view him as. They don't view him as an offensive tackle. And when you have two offensive tackles in the class right now, and Anthony Knapp and Peter Jones, that are probably going to start the career at offensive tackle, Sean, but we've talked about it. They're probably going to be guards, most likely long-term, or at least interior players. There is a question if Caleb Brewer will have a place in this class. And I'm not sure that he will ultimately, because I think Notre Dame views him as a pure interior player, and they have a couple guys in the class already that may also be interior players long-term. So just don't know if there's going to be a spot for Caleb, man. Just not sure.
Hogwash. Absolute hogwash. Double R.
Yes.
Based upon what you said,
Yep.
that would mean that Anthony Knapp is viewed as, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Anthony Knapp is viewed as being more athletic than Caleb Brewer.
He's definitely apparently being viewed as more of an offensive tackle than Caleb Brewer is. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it seems. Again,
right.
we kind of commented on this when Anthony Knapp was committed to Notre Dame, Sean, that Notre Dame definitely they think that Anthony Knapp is going to have an opportunity to play offensive tackle at Notre Dame. That also means, though, that he could transition inside. But the point of this is that if Caleb Brewer did come to Notre Dame, he would start off as an interior offensive lineman. He wouldn't get a shot at offensive tackle, to your point.
I find that interesting. Can't say that I would agree with that assessment. But once again, certain things that come with transition, different eyes on different prospects and different views. And it's unfortunate to build up a relationship that was really looking solid in favor of Notre Dame. And then to,
it doesn't mean that Caleb won't end up being a part of Notre Dame's plan or Notre Dame class. It's just that I feel that it's much more unlikely than coming into the visit. That's just kind of where I am.
Hey, man, this is Notre Dame.
Yep.
I just want people to recognize this. This is Notre Dame. This is Notre Dame, right? You say, well, Sean, what do you mean by that? Dylan McCullough came in as the running back coach. And I think he immediately got the point that he was no longer at the University of Indiana.
Yep.
As a football coach. So he was willing to take the heat for having a real conversation with a running back that was committed to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And that conversation ultimately culminated in Jeremiah Love joining the 2023 Notre Dame class.
Yes.
Now, Dylan McCullough recognized, man, if I'm going to be a running back coach in Notre Dame, that means I can go and get a different level of running back.
And that's what Jeremiah Love is, to your point. Yes.
And I don't have to settle.
Yep.
So I'm not saying Anthony Knapp is one or the other.
I like Anthony Knapp. It's just I think it's just the perspective on what he is where I'm kind of losing it. Or I'm kind of losing it.
I just want to make, I hope that moving forward, the people we see Notre Dame going after on the offensive line are elite premium talent because it's Notre Dame. That's it. It's not any other school. It's not a school where you have to go out and really look and develop kids. And no. This is Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a history of playing true freshmen at tackle. That's the talent that Notre Dame gets. Notre Dame has a young man coming in the fall in the offensive line that honestly we had a conversation that if he was an early enrollee,
Could he
and
start?
he would not have
Yeah.
he would not have had his minor injury that he's dealing with, and he probably is one of the starting five. This is Notre Dame on the offensive line. You don't have to go get projects at Notre Dame. Go get dudes
Yep.
on the offensive line. And hopefully that's what we see moving forward in recruiting.
And man, if Notre Dame ended with an offensive line class, Sean, of Peter Jones, Anthony Knapp, Caleb Brewer, and Gerby Lambert, I would not say a word about it, man, because that's a dang good offensive line class. But I know I have questions because we know that Gerby Lambert is going to be a priority for Notre Dame moving forward, just as he has been for months, right? Like that's a priority offensive tackle for Notre Dame. I have serious questions about who that second offensive tackle is in this class now, outside of Gerby, as far as the guys that aren't committed to the class, right? Like I have concerns. If you don't see Caleb as an offensive tackle, you're probably not going to get it, but shall see, man. We shall see. But it's kind of where we are with it, man.
Hey, man, just recruit to the logo. That's all.
That's it, man. So there's a standard, right? And
yep.
Can't forget that. Can't forget that to your point. So that's kind of the update on Kevin Haywood, offensive lineman, and Caleb Brewer, offensive lineman out of Pennsylvania. Did Aaron Scott already. We talked about Deuce Knight. Last guy I wanted to hit on real briefly, Sean, because it's not a massive update. I do have an article that's coming out on it probably later today. Actually, it might be out. Yeah, it's out at 5:00 p.m. Eastern time if anybody wants to read it. It's on Ryan Gee, who's a tight end out of Georgia, 2025, 6'5.5", 240 pounds, Sean, big boy. He was actually on campus last weekend with his mom.
Yep.
Had a tremendous visit. We talked about it. He hit me up on like Monday or Tuesday. It was like, hey, I'm going back to Notre Dame again this weekend. I'm like, really? What's that? And he said that he wanted his dad to come be able to see it. He wanted his siblings to be able to come and see it. I think at least one of his brothers came with him on the visit. Another tremendous visit, Sean. Like, got the opportunity to talk to academic staff, saw the practice, toured with the dad.
Yeah.
All that great stuff. So Ryan Gee had a tremendous visit. I know most people out there are probably like, oh, he's committing, blah, blah, blah. Nope, he's not. That's not what this kind of is right now. I wouldn't expect Ryan Gee to make a commitment for several months here. I don't think this one's going to be happening anytime soon. It's very high on Notre Dame, man. This is what it is. He wants the whole family to be able to see it because obviously there will be a decision that will be made eventually. Sean, he already is planning trips back during the summer and the fall. So,
look, man, I watched this young man. He was one of the tight ends that I watched follow the tight end group around and watch their drills and watch, everything that Jared Parker was hammering home as he was coaching them along. I think his dad was kind of like maybe about 10 feet behind him, off to the right a little bit. But he definitely has legit interest in Notre Dame. I know Michigan is interested in him as well. So he's a big time talent. Big time talent. I would expect him to be a part of like junior day.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
I would think so.
He could probably be a part of junior day. So that would probably be his summer visit, And yeah, I like the kid too. I like what I saw in this film. So
he puts kids in body bags on the perimeter, Sean. He's a very good blocker.
He's all of the height that he's listed as well.
Yes. Yeah, he weighed in at Notre Dame, actually bigger than what he was listed at on all the recruiting service. He was 6'5.5", 240 pounds, man. As a sophomore in high school, like he's a massive kid, man. And he's some pretty good chops as a receiver. It's just he wasn't used that much as a sophomore. I expect him to take a huge jump as a junior, though. So I like Ryan Gee. Notre Dame's in a good place after the visit. So that's kind of the intel from this past weekend. We're going to get into some recent offers this past week for Notre Dame, but don't go anywhere because we have a long show still ahead of us. Going to talk about some newest offers for Notre Dame, as well as hitting the mailbag here at the end. So before we transition to a couple of the new offers, like button, subscribe to the podcast, notification bell, all that great stuff. Head over to CFB Nation. Check out the YouTube channel and the podcast platform. We have shows on general college football. We have shows on recruiting. We have the Lucky Lefty podcast, of course, with Sean Davis and Malik Zaire. They spin it differently. So make sure you check out those shows as well. But that is going to do it for this portion of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. So, Sean, let's get into some film, man. I know this is what we like to do here, right? So, First guy I want to bring up is a young man out of Salem, Virginia, Salem High School in the state of Virginia, 2024 kid, Sean, who's also already set up a visit to Notre Dame, Chris Cole. He's coming on the 21st. Will not be staying, it doesn't sound like, for the Blue Gold game, but he will be in Notre Dame the day before. This is a really, really intriguing football player, Sean. Very, very intriguing. I was talking a little bit to Brian about this kid a little bit over the weekend when we were just kind of chatting a little bit. This kid is one of the more interesting players, I think, that is now on the board at linebacker for me, in my opinion, Sean. So I'm going to pop up some film here. We'll be able to take a look at Chris Cole as we kind of talk him out, Sean. So this kid is a linebacker in the 2024 class out of Salem. You're going to see on film, plays a lot of overhang, so like the rover position. Overhang just means kind of that distance between offensive tackle and the nearest wide receiver. So it's kind of your flexed out Sam. He plays a lot in space for Salem. But Sean, this kid's good, man. I was really excited about this offer, man. Like there's some linebacker offers that I wasn't really pumped up about when they first were offered. This is not one of those kids, man. This kid is 6'3", 210 pounds, plays in space, physical, good range. I like a lot of what I saw from Chris Cole, man. I like a lot about him, honestly.
Just to give you that perspective, he's the same size as Jaden Greathouse right now.
That's wild, man.
That's wild, right? But no, just looking at his film, I love linebackers that are comfortable playing in space. You get to the college level, and a lot of kids are not comfortable playing in space. But this young man is comfortable playing in space, so he should be able to go ahead and play and plug right into that rover situation at Notre Dame and be impactful early on. Just get the playbook and use his athleticism. He's comfortable in coverage as well, dude. There's not a lot of linebackers that are comfortable in coverage.
Yes. He doesn't panic in space a lot, Sean, which is a thing that we don't talk about enough. But guys that aren't comfortable athletes, comfortable in their own skin, they panic a little bit in space. This kid does not panic. He's very comfortable sorting, and he's very athletic for 6'3", 210 pounds. They have him playing. Do you remember Prince Khali when he was coming out of high school, Sean? Yeah. Prince Khali was used similar to this kid. He was used as an overhang on the second level. They were playing him as a mid-hole safety, which is where – actually, no, this isn't the clip that he's at. But he played him as a mid-hole safety despite being a linebacker projected on the next level, man. There's a lot of talent here. And again, I'm really excited that Notre Dame's getting him on campus so quickly. He has been all over the place, and there's a lot – Georgia's offer. There's a lot of big offers for this kid. Very, very talented football player.
How many offers is Georgia going to give out? Good grief, man.
I got a lot of offers out, man. I got a lot of offers out. Yeah.
But no, I like this young man. I like him a lot. I like him a lot, Double R.
Yeah. I like him a lot too, man. And
that's so impressive to me, man.
Yeah.
Like you said, comfortable in your skin in space.
I was one of those kids, Sean. I was one of those kids, right? I played linebacker. When you put me in space, I got very uncomfortable, man. Very uncomfortable because you're not confident in your athleticism. Yeah. This kid's confident in his athleticism. Guys that tackle well in space are confident that they'll make the tackle. They're confident that they'll make the play. Some guys just are. Some people aren't. Here he is, a wide receiver, because why not? I'm a great athlete, right? Like, why not do that?
Right.
Yeah, man, and again, I think that I had an article about him a couple days ago, but I talked to him and he gave me like a long list of things that he's looking for in a school, Sean. And man, kids that have that thorough of an understanding of where they want to go, like what they need from a school, it's kind of kids that end up at Notre Dame usually, in my opinion, right? And again, I'm not saying that he will. It just got offered, right? Just got offered this past week. But I already have a visiting set up to Notre Dame this month after just being offered. I think that's kind of telling. I think that's a good sign. I do.
Yeah, you're basically saying he fits the profile. Fits the profile of kids that eventually end up in Notre Dame. So.
Yep, and a lot that needs to be figured out here, obviously. Recently offered. I think getting him on campus is going to be a big step for Notre Dame because they'll be able to see him in person, see what his body type looks like. Is he a legit 6'3"? Is he a legit 6'2"? Is he have a body that can fill out? Coach Bayless, what do you think about him?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff, but man, his film is impressive. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
And here he is running an outside fade as a wide receiver for a kid that's projected to play linebacker at the next level.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good, man. Pretty decent football player, in my opinion. So that's Chris Cole, Salem High School in the state of Virginia. Notre Dame will get him on campus again, April 21st, the day before the Blue Gold game. So that's the only 2024 offer we have here, Sean, from this past week. This was one, again, that I was actually very happy and excited about when I saw it. Because, again, there's some offers at times where I'm just watching. I'm just like, man, like, they're fine, right? Like, they're fine.
Yeah.
He's a fine player. He's fine. This kid moved the needle for me a little bit. He's one of the more talented linebackers on the board, in my opinion. And a kid that they need. Like, they need those kids that can play in space and continue to get longer, more athletic. I like him, man. I like him. He comes from a very academically driven background. I think he's about 20 miles away from Virginia Tech, which Virginia Tech's also a school that's going after him hard. And obviously they're right in his backyard. So we shall see if there is a fit that makes sense for Chris Cole and Notre Dame. But like that offer, man. I really did like the offer. So
yeah, I agree with that. Darn right.
It is going to be interesting. So let's go now to Remington Moss, Sean, who is a defensive back out of St. Michael, the Archangel in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Excuse me. A lot of Virginia kids getting offered, by the way. A whole lot of Virginia kids. This is Remington Moss, who's a 2025 kid, Sean. 2025 defensive back, was offered as a safety. 6'2", 175 pounds, as you can see on the screen if you're watching with us on YouTube. Another interesting football player, Sean. He was just on campus recently as well. He was on campus this past weekend, and he got the offer from Notre Dame. I think that the thing that we keep talking about, Sean, is, again, there's some questions about safety recruiting, linebacker recruiting, defensive line recruiting. One thing that no matter what you want to say about those positions, Notre Dame is targeting some guys with a lot of length, man. And that's one thing that stands out with Remington Moss, is my guy is long, brother.
That's really
He's
nice.
Very long.
Really nice. Safety in space, passes the receiver off, jumps in front of the intended receiver for the pick down there in the red zone. That was really nice.
And I love safeties that have cornerback background as well. That shows me that, like, hey, man, he can play a little bit man coverage on top of doing some zone work and being physical. And, again, 6'2", 175, a 2025 kid as well. I think I mentioned that. But 2025 means that he is not done growing, man. There's a lot of growth that can still happen here. 6'2", 175. Maybe he's a rover eventually if he ends up with Notre Dame. I don't know. But all I know is he's very talented.
Did you see the ball skills right there? Most kids would have wanted to just lodge the ball from the receiver right there. He went up in front of him, high pointed, good hands. I don't know. I would be tempted to leave him. I would really be tempted to leave him at safety if he could keep his speed. But you're right. His body type shows he could probably end up a rover with really good skills in pass defense.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's definitely a safety that might be, moving there as well.
Yeah.
But, to your point, man, they're very, very long, athletic, and I love safety backgrounds at corner, man. Like, I love guys that have that man coverage ability. I really do.
Yeah.
Brandon says that they're not targeting length at Viper. I disagree, Brandon. I disagree, but we'll get there during the mailbag, man. Don't agree with that one. But yes, talented kid, man. Remington Moss. And also, Sean, can we talk about this? Man, he is the greatest football name of all time. Remington? Remington
Yeah,
Moss? It's a great name, man.
that's a dope name.
That's a football name, man. Remington Moss.
20, man, some 25 has some nice names, man.
They do.
Deuce Knight, Remington Malls.
A lot of nice name, man. Taylor and Taylor. There's some names. There's some nice names in this one, man.
Hey,
There's
by
some
the
nice names.
way, Taylor just happened to be, at my alma mater this past weekend.
Oh, really? Why?
Hey, he's being respectful to the home state school. He's being respectful.
Love it, man. Love
He's
it, man.
he's still coming to South Bend, though. We know this.
Yeah.
We know this. He just at least show us respect. See, if Notre Dame dominates the Chicagoland area, I just want to come in second with all the kids. Double R. That's all. as long as Illinois comes in second with all the kids. Double R. I feel good about that.
Love it, man. I love it.
But like you said, yeah, great names in the 25 class, man. That junior day, Double R, you might have to come up for that one.
I'll see what's happening, man.
Yeah,
I'll see
man.
what's happening.
That Irish invasion might be epic.
It could be. You're right.
It could be very epic.
Yeah, especially if they get like Deuce and stuff back for that. Like,
that
would be, yeah, man.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah.
Just a quick note in the chat, Brandon. Length is not only just height, man. Like we're talking about wingspan. Like wingspan's actually more important than just heights. Like
I'm glad you say that.
To me
right?
on film is what you're saying. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. Yep. Just
Christian
a quick note. Like, yeah.
Christian Gray is like what 5? I think officially 5'11".
Yes, but he's
Something
long.
like that. But he's long. He plays long. Yeah.
And usually length matches height, usually, right? Like that's kind of a general rule of thumb. But like I even think of like Sean, there's this kid coming out of Northwestern this year, Ade Adebawore, who's a defensive lineman. He's only 6'1.5", but he's got 34-inch arms. Like he's super long. He's not tall, but he's long. He's super long.
Yeah.
All right. But back to Remington Moss, man. So very interesting 2025 kid for Notre Dame that just offered this past week.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm going to pull up highlights for another kid that Notre Dame just offered, another 2025 kid, a wide receiver.
Another great name, by the way.
Alex Graham. You like that name?
Distinguished. Alex Graham. Sounds like a philosopher, right?
That's funny. That's really funny. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Like Alexander Graham Bell, that's the telephone, right? Like, yeah, man. I have some useless knowledge outside of football. I have some useless knowledge, but yeah, he's a 2025 wide receiver corner out of Cass Tech in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
Notre Dame has offered him as a wide receiver, but he does have some upside to playing both sides. But we're going to take a look a little bit at Alex Graham, who was the third and final player offered by Notre Dame this cycle. 6'1", 180 pounds, as you can see. Also, decent track times for a sophomore, 10.9 in the hundreds, a pretty solid time, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Cass Tech, man. I feel like, has Notre Dame ever gotten a kid from Cass Tech? I feel like I've never heard of a player from Cass Tech.
I think so. I mean, that's really a University of Michigan like pipeline.
Yes.
Cass Tech. So
Penn State also has a corner, Kalen King, who's going to be a junior this year. That's from Cass Tech as well, who's a dog, man. Absolute dude. This kid is also very good, though, man. Funny enough, though, you're seeing a lot of cornerback on his film, but Notre Dame also actually likes him at the wide receiver position because he is a dual multi-level prospect as far as being able to play both sides, man. Really talented kid. Here you see him at wide receiver. He had like well over 1,000 yards this year, Sean, and then he also had several interceptions on the defensive side of the ball. This kid's a dude. He's an absolute dude. You'll see it here. In space, he's very dangerous. Very dangerous. He's got a little Taylor Taylor, I think, to his game as a wide receiver, man. Like, he's got kind of that similar profile. A little bit, 6'1", 180, but really, really smooth, explosive, has good straight line speed. There's a lot to like about an Alex Graham. Whole lot to like. Here he is as corner, playing some zone coverage, ability to track the football down the field for the interception, and then guess what happens after he intercepts the ball, Sean? He does stuff with it, man. Oh, there's a flag there, though, but still. Don't run backwards, Alex. Don't run backwards, though, man. Don't run backwards. Like a lot of zone with him at corner because he just There's a really good feel for the game for a younger guy too, man. Only a sophomore, but he's really instinctual nature to him as a football player. No doubt.
Yeah, I was about to say that. His instincts look really good.
In high school, man, Sean, playing zone is one of the biggest headaches as a defensive coach. It's one of the biggest headaches because you'll be playing cover 3, and then you'll just be like, why are we getting beats on an outside vertical against cover 3? Why is this happening?
Right.
Because kids just don't understand zone, man. They just want to be like, yeah, I'm just going to play man all game. Cool. But also you can't do that all game. You can't just do it all game. But yeah. Alex Grant could probably do it all game, though, if he wanted to. But that's a different type of athlete than what I coached at the high school level.
He has good quickness.
Yes.
I like his quickness on both sides of the ball, actually.
Yep. I think it shows up as a route runner, and his ability after the catch, I think, is pretty big time as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Playing a little man-to-man bump and run.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It's off the block.
Yeah.
He's the tackle. Lots to like about Alex Graham. Whole lot. And he's a really interesting player because, Notre Dame offered him as a wide receiver, but, like, he could play a corner. He could play corner at the next level, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
True two-side star here, and Alex Graham out of Cass Tech in Detroit, Michigan. So that is the last offer, Sean, that we had here. Again, Remington Moss, Chris Cole, 2024, Remington Moss, 2025 safety, and Alex Graham, 2025 wide receiver, but can also play defensive back potentially for Notre Dame if he ends up there. No idea if he will. That's just kind of where we are here. Here's some speed. Tracked him down, it looks like. Yep, tracks him down. So that's Alex Graham out of Cass Tech, Sean. That's going to conclude it for just a little bit of the rundown of some recent Notre Dame offers from this past week. We're going to get into the mailbag next, so no one go anywhere. Keep dropping those mailbag questions in. We have a ton of mailbag questions already in the chat, so we're going to take as many as we possibly can here. Before we do, if you could just hit that like button, share this podcast, notification bell is on if you want to hit that as well. And then, we're going to get to your mailbag questions here. But I want to thank you all again for joining this section of the Irish Breakdown podcast. All right, let's get into some mailbag questions. Sean should be back in just a moment here. Brandon Plensner had a lot of questions to start, so I'm going to get through all of these as quick as we can. So Keith Wiegand, first question on the day, said, who is the next 2024 commit? Keith, I can't tell you that, man. No, I can't tell you that. I mean, partly joking, but actually not fully joking, right? But I'll say this. As far as who's Notre Dame in a good spot with, because let's think about this realistically. If you would have asked me about 3 weeks ago, who's the next Notre Dame commit? It definitely would have been the offensive lineman that we just got, right? Like, it would not have been I'm actually trying to rethink this for a second because, like, 3 weeks ago, if you would have asked me who's the next guy to commit, I probably would have said, like, Kennedy Urlacher or somebody like that. I definitely would not have said Anthony Knapp, though. Like, that would not have been a guy that would have been at the top of my mind. But for me, when I look at it and I say, who is Notre Dame in a – if we're looking at sorry, I just got a text message I had to look at. If you're asking me who is Notre Dame in the best chance with and the timelines kind of match up to being potentially the next guy off the board, I would say for me, Kennedy Urlacher out of Arizona safety is going to be coming to campus this weekend. This month. I think Notre Dame's in a really good place with Kennedy. Would it shock me that if he ended up committing to Notre Dame somewhere in the near future? No, it wouldn't. He is not committed right now, though, so do not mix my words up here. But I think they're in a good spot with Kennedy Urlacher. I think for me, it's probably the most realistic as of right now. I would say linebacker, like, it's a Cole Sullivan make a decision sometime in the near future. I think Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot with Cole. Is Bodie Cahoon make a decision sometime in the near future? Like, I wouldn't be shocked by either one of those guys. Defensive line-wise, do the Smith twins make a decision sometime over the next few weeks? Like, if they do, I feel good about Notre Dame's chances in that one. Bryce Young is another one that I feel good about Notre Dame's chances with. That's on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side, I think we're probably still into June until there's a couple more offensive players that start popping a little bit. I think that, yeah, because I know that Jaden Riddell is a guy that, Notre Dame is going to be in it to the end with Alabama, but June 1st is the very, the top time, the first time that he could even, decide on making a decision. That's just kind of from the family's perspective, right? Wide receiver, I think you still want to get guys like Josiah Brown and some others on campus and see what those situations look like. But I think defensive side of the ball is the one that I look at and say a couple linebackers potentially, Cole Sullivan, maybe Bodie Cahoon. Like you're in a good spot with both of those guys. Safety, Kennedy Urlacher, Bryce Young, or the Smith twins. Like I think that you're in a good spot with all those guys. You can convince me that any of those guys are the next one. But again, for a couple of those guys especially, Notre Dame does have to close strong. Like it's a situation where Cole Sullivan, like I don't know, man. Like I think Notre Dame's in a good spot, but you could tell me that Cole Sullivan ends up at Penn State, and I'd be like, yeah, I could see that. Or you tell me he ends up at Michigan, I'd be like, okay, like I could see that happening. Like I don't feel great about that. I mean, let me rephrase because that makes it sound like super negative. I'm just not like 100% on that one, if that makes sense, right? Like I'm just not going to predict it where we are today. So that's kind of where I am with that one. But great question, Keith. Brandon Plensner says, mailbag, if you could choose a 5 to 6 man 2024 defensive line class, what 4 to 5 guys would you pick to go along with Owen Wafel? Oh, Brandon, that's such a tough one, man, because the thing about Notre Dame's board is although some people might not like the way it's shaping out, there is a lot of talent on it. Like there really is. If you ask me 4 to 5 man to go along with Wafel, I'm going to keep it somewhat realistic, right? Like I'm not just going to say a bunch of guys that I just don't think Notre Dame has a chance with. But for guys that Notre Dame is in a decent place with right now that could be legitimate targets with them, for them, I would say Bryce Young, Justin Scott, the Smith twins, I would be perfectly fine with. I know some people aren't, but I personally would. And then another defensive lineman that I would take in that situation if I could get that 6 is I would 100% take Malachi Williams. I would. Like that would be my guy that I could be okay with Logan Thomas as well. But if you told me I got Justin Scott and Malachi Williams in the same class, I would be very ecstatic. And then you say like Smith twins, Owen Wafel, Bryce Young, like cool, man. That's a fantastic 6-man class. Ultimately, I think it's going to be 5. But if you got the 6 and that was your defensive line class, like yeah. I mean, there's some people that you just kind of look at, man, and you just maybe you're not super pumped up about it. But I mean, I would be very happy with that class potentially, because I think that Malachi Williams is a stud, man. He is. If you got Malachi Williams and Justin Scott in the same class, I'd be pretty happy. We'll leave it at that, though. I'd be super, super pumped about that class. And we're going to talk about this in a couple of minutes. Somebody had a question about it. I'm a lot higher on Jacob Smith than I think some people on this channel. A lot higher. Jared, I have some questions with. And I'll get a little more in depth on this. But I think Jacob's a legit top 150 kid. I do. Jared, yeah, we'll talk about that though. But yeah, my perspective on that though. Sean, we had a question from Stephen Goodson who said, hello, did you see CJ Carr's arm in Tennessee last week? Wow, excited. Hope he sticks with us the whole way. Sean, I mean, I would say this, man. If I think that CJ Carr is going to stick with Notre Dame the whole way, but if Notre Dame does land him, yes, Notre Dame fans should be very excited. They should be very, very excited.
Remember, people, we were doing these shows in the middle of last season, and people started to jump off the ship.
Yeah.
Especially after that state playoff game.
Oh, man. You remember that? It was like the third game of the season, too, Sean, or the first game of the season, he threw like 2 interceptions, and people are like, oh, is CJ actually that good? It's like, right. Yeah, he is. He is. No offense, man, but we do this as fans, and I do this too sometimes. I'm not going to say that I'm free of this, right? But we hyper focus on the negative, and then it's just. Sean, I remember this is a perfect situation. Ready? I'll give you one that legitimately happens.
Okay.
You remember when Owen Wafel committed to Notre Dame, right?
I do.
I wasn't as super high on Owen at that point. I know a lot of people weren't, right? And people voiced that. I will say this, after his junior year, I'm pretty dang high on Owen Wafel, man. Like, he's a really good football player, right?
Yeah.
I remember a few months ago, though, he visited Oklahoma with his teammates that was literally signed with Oklahoma in 2023 class, their offensive tackle, and people lost their mind, Sean. The same fan base that didn't like Owen Wafel's commitment at all were now like, oh, now we're going to lose Owen Wafel. Like, come on, man. Come on, man.
That's how it goes, right?
It's frustrating. That part of this game is very frustrating to me, man. Like, very frustrating. I just want consistency, man. I just want consistency. That's all.
He's a darn good kid, boy.
Yeah, man. He had a really, really good junior year, Owen.
Yeah.
Really good junior year. So I thought he took his game to a much higher level, which was great to see. Let's now go to this one, Sean, from Brandon Plensner. We're going to space his out a little bit because Brandon even joked about it in the chat. Sean, he was like, I pulled a John A1 today and just flooded the place with questions, which is awesome. I love when John does that. Like, you can always expect John to have like 17 questions in, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Brandon said, I know it's early, but what 2025 quarterback would you like to see Notre Dame realistically land? I'm pretty sold on Deuce Knight already. I am too, Sean. Like, I would be happy. I mean, I'd be ecstatic if they get Bryce Underwood. Don't think it's very likely. Right. I would be very happy if they got George McIntyre. Be very happy. Yeah. But I think Deuce Knight's my guy, man. I think he's my guy.
Yeah, they might run Harbaugh out of Michigan if he if he loses 3 straight quarterbacks in the state of Michigan.
And we've talked about that before, man. But I don't know what they're doing up in Michigan, man. But you had Dante Moore, CJ Carr, Bryce Underwood in 3 straight cycles. That's wild, man. That's some crazy talent coming out of Michigan at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm sold on him as well.
Yep.
You know, I'm interested in McIntyre. Man, he's a really good quarterback. But I mean, yeah, I would take Deuce.
Deuce would probably be my, again, like, this is just me. This isn't Notre Dame. We know Notre Dame's high on Deuce Knight, but I'm not saying that Notre Dame was just like focusing on Deuce Knight. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I think Deuce Knight would be my guy. I think he would be. I really love that kid's film, man. Such a good player. Such a good talent. Let's go to this one real quick. Keith Wiegand asked, I think someone answered this in the chat, but just want to knock this one out. I said, is Deuce Knight a southpaw? Yes, he is a lefty. He is absolutely a lefty. Let's go now to Keith Wiegand also asked this one, Sean. He said, Ryan, what's your thoughts on the Lynch kid, offensive tackle from New Jersey? So that's Aiden Lynch. If anybody's on the message board, we kind of put a note at the end that Notre Dame was taking a look at this kid named Aiden Lynch, who was an offensive tackle here in New Jersey, 6'7", 280-plus pounds. Keith, I don't have a full opinion on him yet. I've only watched his highlights. I haven't really got a chance to talk to him yet. Like, we just know Notre Dame is at least looking at him, right? So, like, whether that is a offer, whether that is pushing, I don't know exactly what it ends up being. I know Georgia's offered, and back to the Georgia joke, right, Sean? But, like, Georgia's offered Aiden Lynch as well. Penn State's offered him. He's a big kid, pretty strong. I need to watch more. So I don't have like in-depth analysis on Aiden Lynch right now. But other than he's 6'7", 280-plus pounds playing in New Jersey. So he reports like an 82-inch wingspan as well. So that's nice. Here we go to this next one, Sean, from Brandon Plensner, who said, how would you project the 2024 linebacker and wide receiver classes shaking out versus the guys you hope Notre Dame lands at the respective positions? Brandon's trying to get us in trouble, Sean. He's trying to get us in trouble here, I think. He's trying to get us in trouble a little bit. All right, you want to go let's go linebacker first, I guess, right? So, Sean, let's say there's a 3-man class. Who would you be your ideal 3-man class at linebacker?
Other than the California kid himself?
Well, I mean, you can include him, man. Kingston's a realistic
Kingston. Kingston, Cole Sullivan. Ship has probably sailed, but I would have loved to get the kid, the Texas kid, Peyton Pierce.
Peyton Pierce, yeah.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love that, but ship sale, it seems like.
Yeah, I think so too, man. You know a three-man class that I would love, Sean? Because two of ours are the same. I would love Kingston Villamuasa out of St. John Bosco. Would love him.
Yeah.
I would actually really like Chris Cole out of Salem High School in Virginia. I would love
Okay.
Chris Cole and then Cole Sullivan out
Okay.
of Pittsburgh. That would be my
Okay.
three-man, man. I would be like, yep. I
Okay.
can get some stuff done with that, man. I can get
Yeah.
some stuff done with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is it going to look like though, Brandon? I mean, look, I think Cole Sullivan is a guy that Notre Dame's going to go after. Kingston is obviously a top priority for Notre Dame. I think that third potential guy is, I think they would love to get back in with Peyton Pierce. I just don't know if that's going to happen. Bradley Shaw is a kid to quietly watch out for. Again, I wouldn't predict it necessarily, the Hoover kid out of Alabama, but keep an eye on him. And then Bodie Cahoon's a kid that we know Notre Dame's looking at. We know that. So, but that three-man class that I mentioned, I think is pretty good, man. Pretty good. And no Archer. I don't want to hear anything about Ohio State right now, man. We're moving past it. Sean, wide receivers. Let's say we're going to I think it's going to be 3 to 4 pass catchers in the class. We already have one, obviously, in Cam Williams. Ideally for me, I mean, look, I think the ship has probably sailed, or if it hasn't sailed, it's going to sail very quickly over the next few weeks with Ryan Wingo. But I would have loved Ryan Wingo, but I'm going to keep him out of this conversation. Josiah Brown would be one for me that I would absolutely take out of New York. He is a speedster to go with Cam Williams. And then after that, I'd probably go Jason Robinson. Like Jason Robinson out of Cali would be a guy that I would absolutely love in this class. Jason gives you that inside slot type that can really run great routes, can also play a little bit outside, but he's a little bit smaller. Then you got a guy like Josiah Brown who can take the top off the defense. And then you got Cam Williams, who's a legit top 50 kid that can do a little bit of everything, right? Like he can do everything.
Yep.
What would your class look like, Sean?
Same three.
Really?
You know, I've been a Robinson fan for a long time, right?
Yep.
And then, Josiah Brown, just when we went through his film a couple of weeks ago, it was like, yo, his speed is like just game changing. It's game changing. So can you imagine him and Cam on the field at the same time?
Yes. It would be pretty good, man. Because I mean, Josiah would be one of the fastest kids on the team the minute he set foot on campus, man. I mean, his 55-meter time is very comparable with Chris Tyree, who we know is like legit 4.3 athlete at the running back position. So Josiah Brown's legit like 4.4 flat or better type of athlete. Like he's one of those dudes, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that would be a priority. I actually talked to him yesterday, just like quick update on Josiah Brown. Just hasn't finalized any more visits. He's in the midst of track season right now. So, but he'll be making some visits this spring and summer. There's no doubt. We had this question. Sean, want to bang this one out real quick from Call Me Ty. Said, any update on Keedron Young getting to campus? Of course, that's 2024 running back Keedron Young out of Lufkin, Texas. Last time I talked to someone close to him, Call Me Ty, they hadn't had anything set up. Really, the visits that I've seen of him so far are just really local stuff. Like, I mean, he visited like Texas Tech and like some of the other Texas schools. So hopefully Notre Dame gets someone for a visit. It seems like him and Anthony Carey are kind of the two key running back targets outside of obviously having Aeneas Williams committed in the class. So hopefully they'll be able to get him on campus, but I don't have any update for you as far as him getting to South Bend yet. Don't have any update.
Yep.
We're not going to get into this conversation here. We also got Keith Wiegand asked Sean that why is Notre Dame not pushing for Caleb Brewer? We've talked about that one already. It's just they don't view him as an offensive tackle is basically where we're at with that one. So, yeah. Sean, we did have one for you down here that I'm going to get. Actually, let's go to this one. It's a little bit of a different type of question. We have Rob Tidoff says, Ryan and Sean, who wins tonight, San Diego State or UConn? I think UConn by 15. Sean? What do you think?
I don't know the number, but I think UConn wins.
I think UConn wins too. I think they win too.
You know, first team to 70.
Yep.
First team to 70 wins. I just, I respect San Diego State. I just think their advantage is their physicality and size, and that's not an advantage tonight.
Yep.
So what do they do now?
it's been a great story too, hasn't it? It's been a tremendous story as far as the assistant. He was the assistant coach under
Coach Fisher.
Coach Fisher, yeah, for like 26 years, right? And I know he's
going back to Michigan in the 5-5.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah, he recruited those guys.
Yeah, and he so 26 years. I know he's in his 4th or 5th year now as the head coach of San Diego State.
Yeah,
but it's a great story, man. Great story. Yeah. But ultimately, I think that it's UConn tonight, man. I watched them the other night, Sean, against who they just play. I keep blanking right now. My mind is not working. They just played
UConn play Miami.
Miami, yeah. Miami's a pretty good team, man, but they
Miami's
just handled Miami.
Yeah.
They handled them, man.
Yeah.
There was one point where Miami got down to like 8. I think it was like 53-45 or something like that. And then UConn was just like, nope, close the door, man. Shut the door. It's just like, all right. Yeah. They're pretty good, man.
They have too many counter punches.
Yes.
As a team. Too many counter punches.
Man, this is how out of touch I am with college basketball, Sean. I had no idea that Hurley was their coach at UConn. UConn. I had no idea he was the coach. No idea.
Yeah.
Man,
I thought the matchup should have been Florida Atlantic, Connecticut. Yeah. I thought Florida Atlantic outplayed San Diego State.
Yeah, man.
They couldn't rebound the ball the last 3 minutes. It was just
San Diego State with that buzzer beater, though, man. That was nice. It's a nice ending. Man, it's. I'll say this, Sean. It's been very unpredictable March Madness, but it's been very entertaining March Madness as well. Yeah. Very entertaining, man. A lot of good games, a lot of underdogs. It's been really interesting. It's super interesting. Here's one specifically for you, Sean. Braden Plensner asked, Sean, what are your thoughts on 2025 Illinois defensive tackle Jalen Williams? I think Notre Dame should have offered him pot of gold. He's 6'6", 270-pound dude. Really like his film.
I do too. He'll end up at Illinois. I agree. See, this Chicago thing is working well for me right now. It's working well. Like Notre Dame come get the top guys, and then the guys you don't want, just let Brett Bielema have his way. I like it. I like it. I love it. I agree with you.
You're not wrong, Sean, because I mean, honestly, Illinois can take some of the scraps from 2025, and it's like, that's some dang good football players, man.
Football players. Yes, sir.
Because they're not all going to get out in Illinois, right? They're not all going to get out. So, we'll see, man. We'll see. I mean, that kid, there was another defensive lineman that's talented for Illinois in 2025 that Notre Dame hasn't offered as well. It's a pretty good football player. Yeah. I know they haven't offered Epinesa, who's also a really good player out of the state of Illinois. A lot of talent in Illinois, man. I mean, Christopher Burgess.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about Nathaniel Marshall on this show, Taylor, some really good talent in Illinois. We had this question now from John Leahy. Just said, who are Notre Dame pushing for at wide receiver? So, John, it's still a pretty open board. I will say this, Sean, like guys that I think Notre Dame is prioritizing, in my opinion. And we had a little bit of a note here on the message board. And again, if you're not signed up at boards.irishbreakdown.com, you should, because we also put a little bit of a note at the end of the intel from this past weekend. Isaiah Canyon, who's a Georgia wide receiver, 2024, is a guy that Notre Dame loves. 6'3", verified, 200 pounds, 4.51, verified 40-yard dash. He's a player that Notre Dame really likes. Likes him a ton. They have Cam Williams, obviously, in the class. Jason Robinson is another player that they like very much. We had another question about this a little bit later, but Notre Dame has kind of moved on from Jeremiah McClellan in this class. So Jeremiah McClellan, Quasi Gilmer are both off the boards for different reasons. Micah Gilbert, Josiah Brown, and Breedell Richardson. Breedell Richardson's out of Carroll Day High School in Florida. And then Micah Gilbert, who's the younger brother of Mark Gilbert that played cornerback out of Duke, is a player that they're trying to get on campus sometime over the next month or so. So I think the priorities have kind of shifted to, with Cam Williams, who they're obviously very high on, Isaiah Canyon, Jason Robinson, Micah Gilbert, Josiah Brown, Breedell Richardson. That's kind of like the priorities on the list where we are right now. What, Sean, I mean, look, if you get a Cam Williams and then Jason Robinson or someone else, and then Isaiah Canyon is your third to fourth receiver, and he's kind of your height, weight, speed, developmental guy, I'm good with that, man. I'm good with that. Like he's got some talent to him. Just doesn't play wide receiver very much, man.
Yeah.
But shall see. Yes, and Brandon just said Jason Dowell. Yep, that was the kid from Illinois. I was trying to think of was the defensive lineman, Jason Dowell. Who I doubt ends up in Illinois. But we'll see. This question, Sean, was from Brandon Pleasant, who just said, were you surprised that Jason Robinson's brother, 2025 wide receiver Jaden Robinson, didn't receive a Notre Dame offer on pot of gold? I understand he may be a bit undersized currently, but the kid can ball. I mean, surprised, Brandon. I wouldn't say surprised, because I mean, like this is my perspective on it, is that you do kind of want to see how he physically develops a little bit, and that 2025 board is also very deep at wide receiver. I don't know if there's a guy at the top that I would say is like a star, like a top 10, 15 type of dude in the class, but there's a lot of talented receivers. So I'm not surprised. I just think that it's, we'll see obviously as it keeps developing. I will say this though, Jaden is very good. I mean, there was times this year, I know Jason was limited to only 8 games as a junior, I think, with a little bit of an injury. But Jaden was their best receiver sometimes as a sophomore, Sean. Like, he's very good. Obviously, we're talking about Jason and Jaden Robinson out of Long Beach Poly out in California. So, I wouldn't say surprised. I would just say, this is just is what it is right now. So.
Yeah.
Sean, it's an interesting question. Yeah. Here's an interesting question. I'll let you get the first crack at, Sean. Archer 452. Said, is this year the strongest that the 4 Midwestern powers have been in recent history? There is a very realistic possibility that Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State each win 10 games.
Recent history, probably. Right? Yeah, because Michigan has been up and down in recent history. Penn State's been up and down for obvious reasons, dating back to their former head coach, and then Notre Dame's been solid under Brian Kelly, and Ohio State has been a cream of the crop. So
it's good to see, though, man, a little bit counterbalancing with the SEC, though. I mean, the SEC has been, top dog over the last few years, right? But getting some of these Midwest powers back into their peak, I mean, would be a great move. I mean, honestly, like, I want Ohio State to be good. I want Michigan to be good. And obviously I want Notre Dame to be good. Like, I think that makes college football a lot better, in my opinion.
A lot better. Yep.
All right, we already answered a little bit of this question. Yeah, actually, we answered that question fully. We had this question, Sean, as well from, if this would pop up, that'd be great. There we go. Call Me Ty said, do they have a legit shot at George McIntyre or Cutter Boley? I would say, I mean, Cutter Boley, yes. He's been on campus multiple times. I think they have a legitimate chance if they push for him. George McIntyre, I think they probably will, but again, like, they need to get McIntyre on campus and such if they want to make a legitimate push. And
but some school is probably going to connect a job with his dad. The politics of that whole thing.
Is it his dad's at what? Florida International or Florida Atlantic right now, right? One of those, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. For people that don't know, George McIntyre is the son of Mike McIntyre, who was the Colorado head coach a few years ago. We had also. All right, Sean, we were waiting for this conversation, so let's have it. Joe Medina said, in your respective opinions, which Smith twin, and that is Jacob and Jared Smith, is the better talent, and which twin has the higher ceiling? So Jacob Smith is the Viper type. He's 6'4", 227 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Smith is the strong side end interior potential player down the road. He is 6'2.5", 6'3", 250 pounds right now.
Yeah.
My perspective, Sean, I would love to hear if you agree, disagree, whatever. So I think Jacob is the more talented and has the higher upside, in my opinion. I think that for me, I think Jacob Smith is a top 150 type of football player. I think he's a Viper type. I think he's twitchy. I think he's pretty explosive. I like a lot of what I see from Jacob Smith. Jared Smith, I still think is a top 250 kid, but I have some questions about his body, right? Like, I don't know if he's going to be a full-time interior player. I don't know if he's twitchy enough to play on the edge full-time every down. He's a really good technician, though, and he plays very hard, right? And he's slippery. He's a really slippery player. So if his body develops, I think he ends up being a real good football player in the next level. I just have questions. I've seen just pictures of him and stuff. Like, I don't know how he's quite going to develop for me. So I think he might be in that weird little window of like you're a tweener, right? Like you're not really a strong side end. You're not really a 3 tech. Like you're just kind of a moving chess piece. And sometimes that's great.
Yeah.
But sometimes that also means that you just don't really have a home, right? And that's kind of where I am with Jared Smith. So I think Jacob is the twitchier, more athletic, and higher upside player. That's just my perspective, though.
I agree. I agree with your assessment. But I think if his body type can put on 20 to 30 pounds, he can be effective. And I saw some people like mention that he's similar to the Adamiola twins. It's kind of reverse, in my opinion. But I think Jacob, his upside on the outside as a pass rusher is, I think it's pretty tremendous.
I think so, man. I really like Jacob. I know some people don't love him as much, and that's fine. Like we have a difference of opinion there, but I really like Jacob. I think unfortunately for me, I think that some people just kind of aren't big fans of Jared, for instance, and it's just like they just kind of associate them together and they can't really separate them. But like if Jared Smith comes to Notre Dame, I'll be very excited about Jared Smith coming to Notre Dame. I mean Jacob Smith going to Notre Dame. Excuse me. I'll be excited about Jared as well. I think Jacob has more upside. It's just kind of what I'm looking at, man. And I think that he has just more twitch, a little more athleticism. Like there's just a clearer vision, I think, for him, which is why I like him. So let's go now, Sean. This one is an interesting question that I had starred. Where did it go? Sean, we're having this conversation again, man. From Noop Life 007, he said, how much better is JD Bertrand than Joe Schmidt? Your thoughts, Sean?
He's been a lot more healthier. So I think it's apples to oranges. I think Joe Schmidt, prior to the injury, was very productive.
Yeah.
Very productive. Very solid player. Post-injury, not so much. JD Bertrand, I think we've seen what we're going to see from him athletically. Now he just needs to be who he is consistently. Like if you can't be who you are consistently, then having you out there just because you know all the calls and the plays, that's not doing anything if not able to make the plays.
Yes. I think that's a good call. I mean, look, I know we like to bag on JD. I think especially the last time we saw Joe Schmidt. I mean, his last season when he was coming off the injury, man, he was bad. Let's just call it what it was, right? Joe Schmidt before the injury, though, I think was a very solid football player.
Yeah.
Not a stud or anything, just a very solid player.
Yeah.
JD's definitely a better player than the last time we saw Joe Schmidt. Yeah. Like, there's no doubt about that. And I think he was better than the year before that as well. I just think that people have a bad opinion of him because they also saw the worst of Joe next to Jalen Smith, right? Where you're just like, wow, that's a humongous difference, isn't that?
Well,
like, yes, of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
2025. I can't believe we're already on 2025 here, Sean, but here we go, man. Brandon Pleasant said, early on, who are your favorite top 2 2025 running backs and tight end targets that you like the most for Notre Dame? Brandon, for me, the 2 running backs I like the most are Osmane Kroma, who is out of Georgia. He's like a 5'10", 210, 215-pound running back. He's a bowling ball, man. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of Kedron Young in him. Who's my favorite running back in the class, Sean? I'm about to show you all, man. I'm about to show you guys who my favorite running back in the class is right now, early on. Again, not saying he's the best player in the class, but what I'm telling you right now is that my guy, Anthony Rogers, who is a running back out of the state of Virginia, excuse me. Is that where he is? Wait, excuse me 1 second. Anthony Rogers, I feel like that is wrong. I want to get this up before I start talking. Alabama, I'm sorry. He's out of Alabama. So you probably won't get Anthony Rogers, right? Sean, my guy's nickname is Turbo, for one, and he's very fast. But I want you to take a look at a couple of these highlights here, Sean, because it's not just speed, man. It's not just speed. There are some legit contact balance and physicality despite being 5'8", 185, 190 pounds, man. Look at this run. Look at that run, man. He's out. And his nickname's Turbo. How fantastic is that? His nickname's Turbo, man. He is lightning in a bottle. This is Chris Tyree in a more physical package, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as fast as Chris, because Chris is, 4.3 fast. Maybe this kid's only 4.4 fast, only
Yeah.
4.4 fast, right? But this kid's lightning in a bottle, man. I love Anthony Rogers. Again, he's an Alabama kid, so how much of a chance you're going to have there, I have no idea, but kid is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I would agree with him. I mean, my tight ends would probably be right now, based on the offers, like Gee Flanagan. I like Flanagan, man.
James Flanagan, yeah.
I do.
Yeah, James Flanagan's a really good football player. He's out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. He's the son of Jim Flanagan, obviously. Notre Dame legacy. That's a good one, Sean. Tight end as well outside of Flanagan. Talking about Ryan Gee a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented kids, man. I mean, the Elias Williams kid is a really talented kid that they offered. He's a basketball player. Ethan Barbour is a good football player. He's out of Georgia, 6'3", 215 pounds. Nate Roberts is a pretty good player out of Oklahoma. CJ Nixon's another guy that plays a lot of basketball. Notre Dame's got another talented tight end board, man. Shocker. Notre Dame's looking at some good tight ends. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? What's up, Ladarius? Going to go now to Archer's question, Sean. Notre Dame currently sits at 9 commits in the 2024 class. How many are in the class before the next dead period, end of June? That's a great question. So we're predicting how many guys will be in the class. How many more guys, I guess, adding to this board.
End of June?
End of June, yeah. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to say Notre Dame has 12 kids in the class at that point. 12 or 13. That's what I'm going to say.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think over the next month and a half, you're talking about 3 to 4 commits. Sounds right-ish, maybe. I mean, look, Sean, I was talking about this, I think, when you had to step out for a second, but like, if Notre Dame feels good about, if you're Notre Dame, you feel pretty good about Kennedy Urlacher potentially, maybe landing him coming this month. One or two of the linebackers, I think, could come off the board potentially. The Smith twins, if they come off. So maybe I'm lowballing it, man. Maybe we're talking about 5. I don't know.
I was saying I like that 13 number.
Like 13?
It's kind of unlucky.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to sit on 13. Maybe I should go up to 14.
Archer's telling me to name the guys that I already Archer, I already named some of the guys I think they're in a position with.
Yeah, we've been doing that the whole hour.
I know. Seriously, man. I've been naming a bunch of 2024 kids I feel Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot with, man. Pretty good about it. All right. And then we had this question was from Brandon Plensner. Said, what's Notre Dame's standings with Styles Prescott? He planning a spring visit. Not that we've heard yet, Brandon, but we'll keep you guys updated. I had mixed feelings with Styles Prescott, which is funny, Sean, because we actually had a follow-up. Keith Wiegand asked, what are your thoughts on Styles Prescott? It was actually his question right after Brandon's question. I like Styles. I just don't know if he would be a guy I would push for personally. I think Notre Dame likes him, though. I think he definitely like him. Nothing about him really pops to me personally. Like, he's a solid athlete. He's got good size, good length, but like, I don't know. It just doesn't pop to me, man. It just doesn't pop to me enough. I should just say there's other guys that I think I would prioritize. Prioritize a little bit higher than Styles Prescott. But that's not to say Notre Dame will or won't. Bang this one out real quick. We had Mike Reddy, who said, is Jason Mitchell. That's the defensive back out of St. John Bosco. He was a transfer over there this offseason. He's still planning on visiting in the spring. Are there any other notable 2024 recruits who are definitely visiting but haven't set up a date yet? Mike, Jason was planning on it, but I just don't know if he's going to or not. Like, honestly, like he was like very vague with wanting to visit Notre Dame, but I wouldn't be shocked if he does, but I don't think it's going to be big for Notre Dame either way. I just don't know if that one makes sense. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of the short of that one. Other guys that are setting up visits, like trying to set up visits, we've mentioned a lot of these types of names, but like, I think Micah Gilbert, is a kid out of North Carolina that has talked about setting up a visit. Josiah Brown has talked about trying to get back up to Notre Dame for a visit. Gerby Lambert's a kid that is now visiting Notre Dame for the blue and gold game. He's a guy that's been talked about, been asked about pretty regularly. Malachi Williams is on the visitor list. He's coming up to Notre Dame as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few, but, most of the guys are starting to figure that stuff out. I think the big thing is that Kingston Viamo Asa is talking about taking a visit in April, and that'll be big to get him on campus for sure. I mean, but otherwise, again, ask specifically, and we'll be able to kind of fill you in with anybody that you're really, really curious about. Next question is from Robert Bishop. Sean just says, do you think they would or will take as many wide receiver recruits in the next class? So they took 4 last year, Sean. I think 3 to 4 is probably the number. So as much, possibly more. No, they won't take more, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's going to be a smaller class, man. Brian reported that he thinks it's going to be between 20 and 22. It's going to be a smaller class in 2024, I think.
Yeah.
Call Me Ty had a little bit of an over-under, Sean. He said over-under new commits by the end of April, 2024 and 2025 combined. So we have to set an over-under here. How about this? I'll set the over-under. You tell me if you're taking the over or the under. Let's do it that way.
Okay, by the end of April?
By the end of April, I'll set the over at 2.5.
Under?
Think it's under?
Yep.
Could be.
Yeah. I think they get one blue and gold weekend and one more.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very true. We had another. I might actually go over, Sean. I don't know. That one's close. You can convince me either way on that one. I think June's going to be the big one, though, where a lot of guys are going to pop personally. At least publicly pop, right? That's going to be the one. So maybe you'll get some nice gifts from us in the on the message board between now and then. I don't know. We'll see. Tyler Smith's question: how are we feeling about Anelu Lafayette, and why aren't we looking at Preston Tuamua, couple Hawaii boys? I don't know anything about Preston, Tyler, because he's not on Notre Dame's board. He's not been a guy that I've ever been, kind of tipped off on. I don't know anything about him, to be honest. Yeah. Anelu is visiting in June for an official visit. We believe that Notre Dame and Wisconsin are the top 2 suitors for him right now. I think the question is, what does the defensive line board look like for Notre Dame at that point when he takes the official visit, right? I think that's kind of the big conversation piece. I think that he is a good football player, though. I like Anelu. And could he end up at Notre Dame? Possible, but it really depends on what that board looks like when he takes his official, in my opinion. Yeah. That does depend. Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Funny story about him, Sean. He's out of St. Louis. So 2 of his idols, right, are one kid that you know very well, Jordan Botelho, who also went to St. Louis. He was a freshman when Jordan was a senior, or an 8th grader. I forget what it was. Yeah. But so anyway, Jordan Botelho, and then the other edge rusher on that team that was in the same class was the kid that is coming, Nick Herbig, the kid that's coming out of Wisconsin in the draft this year. So. Yeah. It's funny now that he's kind of deciding between Notre Dame and Wisconsin. It's just kind of a funny little parallel there. We answered this one already a little bit earlier. John Leahy said, has Notre Dame moved on from Jeremiah McClellan? Yes, John, it appears so. They've they are moving on from there. And it's nothing negative, it's not grades or anything. It's just, I just think Jeremiah likes other places a little bit more, and Notre Dame's not going to put all the effort into a guy that maybe just doesn't want to be at Notre Dame. So it's kind of where we are with that one. We had Marquis Stewart shown and said, is Notre Dame ever going to put an explosive player as punt returner? Is there any plan to address this in recruiting?
I think they've had plenty of explosive people.
CJ Sanders was pretty dang good as a punt returner, man.
I mean, I just don't know if the coaching has been, they had a really good punt return game last year. They just didn't have the explosive guy back there.
Yep.
But Brandon did a pretty good. He did a good, solid job returning punts.
He quietly was very solid, man.
Yeah,
very solid. He was like 10 yards. I was almost 10 yards of punt return, which was astronomical for Notre Dame. It's like, wow, we haven't seen that in a couple of years.
When was the last time you saw that? Double digits?
Oh, probably CJ Sanders, I guess, right? I mean, he's probably the last one.
Yeah.
I think that they have an opportunity to get some guys back there this year, Sean. Like, I mean, Jeremiah Love would be a guy that I would put back there potentially.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like,
Brian Payne,
yeah,
I think, is going to return kicks
yeah.
from what we saw Saturday.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the kick return looks like if Jadarian Price is back healthy and when Jeremiah Love gets on campus. I would really like to see that one, but shall see, man. Shall see. This question was from Paola. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that terribly wrong. My deep sympathies. Said, if you guys had to choose one home game this year to have all your top targets and commits take their OVs, are you going with USC or Ohio State, and why, Sean?
I would go USC just later in the year. Just later in the year.
So you're more worried about the timing of some guys trying to get the last crack at them type of thing? Yeah. Makes sense. I might actually go with Ohio State just because I think that a lot of the pool that you're pulling from is going to be Midwest driven, right? So it's like beating Ohio State, I think, is pretty impactful if you're able to beat them on your home turf. But I don't think USC is also a good answer.
You know what?
Because
that's a good
timing,
point. That's a good point because beating Ohio State would be monumental. And to be part of that as a recruit, to be in person would be pretty dope. Notre Dame has been beaten up on USC at Notre Dame Stadium for the last decade. So
it's true. It's very true. And Notre Dame has not beaten Ohio State in my lifetime. So there's that. There's also that. Call me Ty asks, who do you think will be the starting Rover for the next 3 years? Snead will eventually move to Will, right? I am always thought that Osbury would be that guy. Well, I mean, Sean, I don't know if you have like deep thoughts on this, but like, I mean, Snead might move to Will eventually, but I mean, right now he's going to play Rover, right? So you're talking about the next 3 years. So I'm assuming 2023 is included in this. Yeah. So I mean, it's probably going to be Jack Kaiser and Jalen Snead is going to be a Rover this year. And then after that, I think it's going to be Snead and Osbury are the Rovers moving forward.
It's so easy to see that Osbury is going to be a Rover.
Yeah.
It is. If you watch him just move, it's like, okay. Yeah. this dude is different.
Yes, he is. Sean, I said this the other day, man. Drake Bowen and Jaden Osbury both need to play. I'm not saying they need to start, but they both need to play. No. They both need to play.
No, they're slow.
Who's slow?
Remember, that's what I said to Brian all weekend as him and the rest of the media sat there and watched the performances on Saturday. And I was like, no, he's slow, remember? Remember, everybody was questioning his speed.
Oh, yeah, Drake.
Yeah, he's slow. Yeah. Like, no, don't jump on the bandwagon now. He's slow. He looks slow, right?
That was one of the worst narratives I've heard about a Notre Dame recruit this cycle, man, was that he was slow. Like, guys, I don't think you understand what slow is. I really don't think you understand. I don't think you understand what fast is either. Like, I just don't think you understand that sometimes, man.
Well, see, he's football fast.
Yes.
See, I don't care about, if you line up and clock him next to like other guys that run track, he might not run as fast as them. All right. But I've seen him outrun plenty of defensive backs and linebackers offensively, and I've seen him track down many a wide receiver and a running back.
He's also 230 pounds, man. Like, he's a big dude, too,
Yeah. I'm probably going to ask him to add 10 more pounds.
Play Viper.
Let me stop, man. Let me stop. I'm being petty today. I'm being petty today. Oh, you're 230. Add 15 more.
Even though he's literally heavier. I mean, literally as heavy and taller than your starting Mike linebacker right this second.
Right now.
right this second. Oh, it's too funny, man.
Grief, man.
Oh, that's really, really funny, man. That's so funny. We had, but yeah, I think Rover's going to be in a good spot, man.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. Someone just said in the chat, Sean, that like, could you imagine a starting three eventually of Drake Bowen at Mike, Nolan Ziegler at Will, and then Jaden Osbury at Rover? It's a lot of speed, man. It's a lot of speed.
Where the heck is Jalen?
So yeah, I guess Jalen Snead's playing Viper. I guess I don't know, man. I don't know. We saw him playing Viper in the bowl game last year. So like, who knows at that point? I don't know, man.
That kid is going to be all over the field this year.
I think so too, man. I think so too. I'm excited to see those young linebackers. I hope Nolan gets a legit shot because it sounds like he looks pretty good in practice too. So
that is funny. Yeah, man. I remember all those people that said Dre Bourne was slow. I kept receipts.
Oh man, it's so funny, man. It's so funny. Some guys are just so slow. It's just hysterical to me. We had Call Me Ty also asked, Sean, did Julio hook you up when you were in town? That's the barber, right?
No. He's cutting me for the blue and gold game.
Nice.
He's cutting me for blue and gold game, but I stood and talked to Julio for about him and his other barbers because they were actually there to cut after practice. So I talked to them on the field during practice for about 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, we chopped it up.
Nice. He does nice work, man. I love seeing the guys with their cuts, man. He does really nice.
He definitely keeps Marcus Freeman fresh.
It does. Dude, Marcus Freeman. Sean, have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother? Have you ever seen that show?
Yes.
So you remember the one episode where they were trying to get a bad picture of Barney, and like no matter what they took a picture of, he always just looked fantastic.
Right.
That's Marcus Freeman, man. You can't get that guy to take a bad picture. He can't take a bad picture, man.
I agree. That's a good call.
Just like he'd be like picking his nose, and then you try to snap a picture of him, he'd just be like, look immaculate, you know? Like, what is happening, man? Marcus is that dude, man. He's that dude. Ugh. I made a bad mistake the other day, Sean, by the way. I said, I asked my wife if she found Marcus Freeman attractive, and I wasn't ready for the answer to that question. Wasn't ready for that question. Wasn't ready. It was a very quick answer too. It was a very quick answer. It wasn't what she answered. It was how quickly she answered it. I think is what got me, man.
Almost like she had that one locked and loaded, right? For the right
like
time.
she's been thinking about it. Yeah, exactly.
Note to self: don't ask wife about Marcus Freeman.
I'm telling you, man. It was the quickness of it, man. I expected her to say yes, right? I expected her to say yes.
Right.
It was just, hey, babe, do you think Marcus Freeman's attractive? Yes. Oh, okay. I didn't even finish the question yet.
She's playing Family Feud, hitting the buzzer before you finish the question. Like, oh man, top answer on the board. Yes.
I'm actually crying. That's fantastic. It's so funny. Oh, yeah. It was a very quick answer. Man. That's hysterical, though. Back to the two questions we have left here, Sean. We had Tyler Smith who asked, how would y'all feel if Notre Dame did a curveball and switched our brand to Champion?
Champion is kind of popping right now.
Is it? I'm not a fashion guy, man. I'm going to have to lean on you for this one. Yeah.
And the culture is kind of, yes, it's definitely made a comeback. In the culture. I don't know how it would play as far as apparel but definitely like, the popular culture, it's made a significant comeback.
Do you think players and recruits would get they would get excited about that? Like, I guess is my main question. It's like that's like the appeal a little bit, you know?
It's one thing for it to be part of the culture. It's another thing for it to go up against Nike and
Yeah.
Because Champion was a big apparel company when it came to jerseys in high school, college, it was big. They had a lot of contracts. Now
we had Champion jerseys when I was in high school.
So now I don't know their impact globally if it's the same. So that would be my only holdup.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but Champion sweaters. Are you kidding me? My best sweaters were Illinois Champion sweaters in college. I had at least 2 of them that were just
nice,
sweet.
Love that, man. Love that.
One of them got me in trouble though.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, girlfriend kind of called me like, "Why is such and so wearing your sweater?"
Oh,
and I'm like, first of all, I didn't give it to her. Like, Why is she wearing my sweater? It was like a long story mystery. I had to figure out how my sweater went from my friend to someone else to someone else and ended up at a party with my girlfriend who knew my sweater. Like, that's his sweater. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's never works out too well. Those types of conversations, man.
Like,
That never
why
works.
am I getting this call at 3 a.m?
Oh, she was up thinking about it, huh?
Oh, she left the party and just. Oh, are you kidding me?
Man. Oh, man. Now I'm reminiscing about some college days, man. It's fun times. We've all been there, though. We've all been there. It's some bad decisions. But like Keith Wiegand said, hit that like button, folks, by the way. Appreciate you, Keith, for liking the show. Thank you so much.
Say?
What's that?
I took it in the wrong spot.
What happened?
I was looking in the chat. Somebody said, yes, sir, Sean, that you took it in the wrong spot. I don't know what that
means. You took the sweatshirt in the wrong spot or something, or like made it visible. I don't know. No. Frank, let's know what you mean by that, man.
No.
Love to hear.
Frank's good. Please.
Frank's good people, so I want to hear what he has to say on that one, man. I want to hear what he has to say about
that. I gave it to my good friend that I grew up with, Toya, man.
Yeah.
I gave it to her. Like, I think we're in the quad, and she was getting ready to walk to class, and it was cold. It had gotten cold.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked she was like, let me wear your hoodie, and I let her wear it. And I didn't even, really ask her about it.
You said took it off on the wrong place.
Oh, no. It wasn't about that. I was, I gave it to she was like a sister. You know what I'm saying? You know how you grow up somebody in like school and church and you end up, so.
Girlfriends don't like hearing that though, man. They don't like hearing that.
Yeah, I just didn't know she was going to make my property public property. Like, dude. Man.
There were some college conversations and fights, Sean, that you like think back at it, you're like, man, that was ridiculous. That was such a ridiculous conversation, man. That's so funny. Last question of the day, Sean. Speaking of Illinois, you mentioned your Illinois sweatshirt. Luke Breeding said, do you guys think Marquise Lightfoot could play linebacker? He's a 2024 edge out of the state of Illinois that is on the board for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is obviously cooled on Marquise.
Marquise depends. He's not playing linebacker.
No. I mean, I think in if you're running a true 4-3, Luke, and you're like, you can play Sam linebacker and then you're going to put him on the line of scrimmage a ton too, then yes. Yeah. But he's an edge guy. He's going to play on the edge most of the time. Yeah. So he's like 6'4.5", 6'5". Like he's a pretty long dude, right? So it's like that length at linebacker does usually hurt you. Like you don't see a lot of long linebackers anymore. Usually those guys are a little bit more. They're usually more like the Devin White style of linebacker is what everyone is kind of looking for nowadays. Yeah. Like 6'1", explosive, that dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not as much the 6'4" linebackers anymore. It's not usually what we're kind of looking at. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it, though, Sean. That's going to do it for the mailbag section of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Want to thank everybody. Serious before everybody leaves here. I know that. I think most people have been aware of like my situation last week. I hit on it a little bit earlier, but I just really wanted to thank everybody that has sent me a message, a comment on the message board, DM, text messages. I've even gotten some text messages from folks that follow Irish Breakdown. I want to thank Sean and Brian as always for, picking up the slack that I left behind, obviously, with just working through some stuff, man. But I appreciate you all very much. I really do. And I was happy to be back today. But I want to thank everybody again for joining the show. Thank you all for the great questions. Especially want to thank my guy, Sean Davis, of course, for being along for the ride with this show.
Good
as always,
you, bro.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So like buttons, hit that notification bell, share this podcast. If you're not signed up to the boards, that irishbreakdown.com message board, you definitely should. We'll have a lot more intel on team recruiting moving forward here. If you are not signed up, you should, or if you're not subscribed to the CFB Nation YouTube channel, make sure that you go there now. You can find the Lucky Lefty podcast. You can follow some recruiting insights, some college football insight. Make sure to sign up there as well. Make sure to go subscribe right this second. 5-star reviews are also very much appreciated on any of your favorite podcast platforms. So tonight, 6 o'clock, IB Nation Sports Talk. That's Eastern time, of course. Tomorrow, I'll be back with Brian Driscoll at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time to talk a little Notre Dame team conversation. Want to thank you all so much again. But just thank you about 17 times in the last 2 minutes. But I really do appreciate you all, man. From Sean, I am Ryan. Thank you all again for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast for this edition of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour.